Hello everyone. This video is to see if it is possible to beat Resident Evil 4 Remake with just the handguns. The rules are simple. I'm only allowed to use handguns such as the Silver Ghost, the Red 9, the Matilda, Punisher, and the Blacktail. Any other guns are not allowed to be used. I do use the rocket launcher for skips and one or two bosses, and that's it. Grenades are allowed to be used, and so are healing items. I'm also allowed to use the stocks and the laser for the handguns, but otherwise all other weapons are forbidden. Surprisingly enough, this challenge was a mixed bag. It was slightly easy in some parts, but other parts were quite difficult, especially later on the island. And also, the Matilda was pretty much the saving grace in this challenge, because the Matilda is basically a small pistol but packs a punch when you have the stock included, which made the village fight a joke. So now as we head to the farm, few things that I genuinely did not like about this challenge was the fact that a lot of parts that are usually very easy when it comes to mobs in this game are kind of difficult to deal with, because all of the guns that I have don't do enough damage to kill them on the spot. But I was able to deal with it later on, and when I mean later on, I mean in harder areas where the enemies are more condensed in a smaller area like the cabin, versus like open areas like here where I have more space to move around and have time to react, because the pistols are not like, you know, the SMG or the shotguns where you can do crowd control a lot easier. That's why I said the Matilda made things easier, because it was the only gun that did enough damage to kill enemies a little bit more consistently, versus the other pistols where it took a little longer. So I mostly use the Matilda for most of the enemies, especially the brutes and the shield enemies. I did ditch one of the pistols later on, which is the Red 9. The Red 9 is okay, but it doesn't have anything substantial that's not damage. The recoil sucks. The reloading and time sucks. The rate of fire sucks. The only thing that the Red 9 has is raw power. That is the only good thing about it. So later on I do ditch it for just the Matilda. I mostly use in this challenge the Matilda. I think it's either the Sentinel 9 and Blacktail. And I really didn't use the Punisher, because the Punisher is absolute dog water. It's probably one of the worst guns besides the Red 9 and the Bolt Thrower. Also, my new challenge run that's going to be taking over on Thursdays is I'm going to see if it's possible to beat Resident Evil 4 Remake with one weapon per challenge, which will be, right now it's the LE5, but later on I would be doing like the shotguns, the TMP, and the bolt thrower, to see if it's possible to beat the game with guns that are not intended to be run carriers, and also the rifles. So to make it fair, I was using a picker wheel. And what I did was I put a bunch of the weapons names in a picker wheel, and I chose the LE5. Originally kept picking handguns, and I'm not using any of the handguns because I proved it's possible to beat the game with just handguns. And I don't think handguns were intended to be carriers, but they made a trophy achievement for Resident Evil 4 Remake to if you could beat the game with just handguns, and it's possible, so you really don't need to do one handgun or whatever. I prefer to like see if the shotguns can carry you in the game, or the TMP, or of course the bolt thrower is probably going to be the one of the worst weapons to use to beat the game. I remember a while back I watched a streamer. He was playing Resident Evil 4 Remake on professional difficulty, which I will not touch with a 50-foot pole with these challenges. I will do it on hardcore difficulty, but I will not do it on pro, because pro in this game sucks. So he was playing Resident Evil 4 Remake on professional, trying to get an S plus rank with just using the bolt thrower, and I watched it, and it's a very, very hard challenge. I've tried most of the weapons over time, but I never used the bolt thrower. I think as long as I played Resident Evil 4 Remake, the two guns that I barely ever used or ever purchased was the bolt thrower and the striker, because in Resident Evil 4 Remake they did nerf the striker. They nerfed most of the good guns from Resident Evil 4, the original, so it's not going to be fun when I have to do the bolt thrower. I'm trying to save it at the very end because it's probably going to be the most frustrating. You guys thought that no healing and the knife is frustrating. Just you wait for a weapon that barely does any damage and is only useful when mines are attached, and you have to basically craft your own weapon ammo and craft the mines. And the only way to craft ammo for this weapon is to get a bunch of knives, hoard them, and make bolts. The only good thing about that gun is that the bolts are reusable. The only time they aren't is if you attach a mine to it, obviously, but otherwise it's probably the worst gun in the game. So I am not looking forward to the day where I have to play Resident Evil 4 Remake with just the bolt thrower. But I'm looking forward to seeing how this challenge goes. And I had a blast with you guys on Saturday with Resident Evil 6. I had a lot of fun. That was actually genuinely funny, and I had a genuinely fun time playing it. And if you guys do want to see more Resident Evil 6 challenge runs, I'll be willing to do it. You guys just have to specify what campaign. Some of the campaigns have different guns and different weapons that are not the same amongst each other, because every character has a specific weapon that is just theirs. Like Ada has her crossbow, Leon has his pistols, Helena has the Hydra, which is a 3-barrel shotgun, Jake has his fists because Wesker's child. And also, I think Sherry has a stun stick, and then Piers has his rifle, and Chris has his gun. I forgot what it is. So everybody relatively has their own weapons. So I'm trying to think of any other challenges I'll be willing to do. But the only one campaign I will not play is Jake's. So do not ask. Unless I have somebody to play the game with, I will be not doing Jake's. The reason why is Jake's campaign has a lot of sections in it that having another person play makes it 10 times easier. And the reason why I say that is one section in particular, and I believe it's chapter 2, you have to do this section where you have to open doors, and what I like to call Snack Pack, that's what I like calling him, he basically has this arm where he drills the doors open and breaks them. And if you're not fast enough, you'll die very quickly. And you have to do a lot of different, you have to like button mash and do different button combinations. And before that, there's a section where there's like a big area of ice, and you have to like set off a remote bomb so Snack Pack runs away from Sherry so she can get the key card. And I tried doing that for a very, very long time with the AI, and the AI would not cooperate. So it's like kind of like how Sheva didn't cooperate in Resident Evil 5. It's that bad, but it's like in a shorter section. So I don't want to deal with incompetency from the AI. It's easier with Leon's or Ada's, because Ada's by herself. So it's easier with those two, but if I do play Chris's campaign, I love Piers, but I would have to play as Chris, because Chris AI with Piers is completely useless. Chris will stand there and ignore you. I did a video a while back showing how useless Chris is. And let's just say Chris just stands there and like poses for animal crackers. He does absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. Like, he's that useless. So I would have to play Chris because Piers is more competent AI wise than Chris. So that's what I have in plan for the YouTube channel. I'm still doing knife only, which will be done this week. LE5 will probably be done next Thursday because the gun basically is making this challenge a breeze for the most part. So I'll be doing those this week. And Saturday we will be continuing RE6. RE6, the chapters are long, but the game is kind of short. The campaigns are only like 5 chapters each. So since we're in chapter 2 for Resident Evil 6 for Leon, give or take maybe another week or so, we'll be done with it. It takes a while because most of the time the chapters, depending on how many times you die, which I've died multiple times. We had fun though, which that's the point. Because I've never done a challenge run for 6, and also I barely play 6. I play it like every so often, that's it. But back to Resident Evil 4 Remake, after the whole spiel with what our plans are going forward. This chapter, there wasn't really anything that happened so far. We got we got the part that we needed for the door, and we also were able to get away, but the whole part of that dynamite area was watching Leon get tossed around like a chopped salad. With the dynamite going everywhere, Leon getting flung in every direction possible. And if you ever see any jump cuts with the merchant, is because I cut out the whole section with the merchant, so that's why there's jump cuts. Because when I edit, I try to edit all of the backtracking, merchant, dead air, and all that stuff. Deaths, retries, loading screens, end of chapter screens, saves. I try to just keep all the regular gameplay and that's it. So if there's any jump cuts, that's what I cut out. So I don't remove any gameplay that's not important. But for the most part, I just use the Matilda because the Matilda, even though they nerfed it, because if you maxed out the Matilda, I believe in the original it gave you 100, and this game it only gives you 60, so they removed 40 from the clip. It's not as bad as what they did to the TMP, because the TMP I think originally had 250 if you don't have the stock attached to it, and then 300 if you have the stock attached to it. In the game, I think they nerfed it to 60 as well, so that would be 190 bullets that they removed. From the gun, which is a shame because I love the TMP in the original. It's so good if you know how to use it properly, but this game they basically made it completely unusable unless you use the stock, which is a shame because the gun was good for what it was. And also, I usually either forget this or I forget the key for the church in chapter 4. So it's either I always forget the marble or I forget the stupid key for the church to get Ashley. Also, I did fail the no healing challenge. Even though I completed it because I got stun locked at the very end. So when I do the video, when I get caught up, I'll explain that technically I beat the challenge, but I failed due to the fact that I had to heal at the end because I got stun locked with the door before the whole gauntlet at the end. Which was unfortunate because I was hoping to complete it, but like I said, I wasn't going to heal again, but I had to. So once I had to heal a second time, I called it quits. So when it comes a time, I'll specify that technically I completed the challenge up to chapter 14 and failed at chapter 15 at the very end of the race. Because I got hit, and then when Leon is in critical health, he runs a lot slower, and on higher difficulties, the door that leads you to where the merchant is again kept closing, and I couldn't move fast enough due to Leon being almost dead. So that's when I had to heal and say that I failed, and then I just completed it, and that was it. So, with this video is older, is originally I just made a highlights compilation, but I figured I would make a video showing the whole entire challenge from start to finish with everything cut out of it that wasn't necessarily important. It wasn't that hard. I think this challenge, this weapon challenge, is probably the easiest due to the fact that the Matilda carried it. If I couldn't use the Matilda, I think it would have been much different. And also, the knife is allowed, but I really didn't use the knife unless it was like a finisher or breaking stuff or whatever. Otherwise, I really didn't use it because for the most part, when it comes to the knife, I only use it when necessary or when I'm doing stealth kills. Finishing them off when they're twitching on the ground, or the fight with Krauser, which I always tell you guys, Krauser is the make or break in these challenge runs because Krauser's fight on higher difficulties is very tedious. He's a lot easier on lower difficulties, of course, but he is not fun when it comes to higher difficulties due to the fact how much damage he does and how aggressive his AI is. Which makes sense because Krauser's Krauser, but truthfully I wasn't too keen on Krauser's fights, which are in chapter 11 and chapter 14. I still suck at this game, because I'm not used to full 360 movement when it comes to games like these. The reason why I say that is I grew up playing mostly RPGs and platformers for a good majority of my life. I didn't start playing these games like Resident Evil like 2 years ago in March, so I'm still learning versus me playing RPGs for like 15 years. So there's a big gap between that. I started playing RPGs when I was 12 or 13 years old. So I've been playing them for a very long time versus these games which I've only been playing for 2.5 years. So I have still a lot to learn and still a lot of practice. But over time, I think I started to get slightly better at Remake, but not as good as my OG 4. I think the reason why I'm better in OG 4 versus Remake 4 is due to the fact that I'm used to slow-paced games and having very methodical reactions versus games that expect you to have really consistent reaction time. Like, for instance, I suck at the Souls series because my reaction time is terrible when it comes to dodging, blocking, and parrying. So, I suck at those types of games versus games that are very slow and methodical or have timing relative to like jumping or whatever, but not necessarily like shooting or blocking, dodging, parrying. All those things I suck at. So it's very hard for me to stay consistent with that. So I think I told you guys a while back that 1 year for my birthday, I think I saw like, what was it? Dark Souls 2 for like $4 at a GameStop, and I was saying to myself, it's only $4, what could possibly go wrong? And then when I started playing it, I rage quitted because I was playing in this ruined castle, whatever it was like above water or whatever. And as I was grinding for like souls and like humanities, I was able to get enough so I can, level up whatever my character. At one of the bonfires, there's like a bonfire where I was, and what happened was I was attacking one of the undead knights, and one decided to kick me off of the platform, and wasn't able to get all my souls and humanities back, and they were lost forever. And once that happened, I cut the game off and I never played it again, which I think was Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 2 I stopped playing because I felt the game was really poorly balanced. Because I do like challenging games, but I don't like it to where the player feels like their skill and their ability to learn is compromised because of the lack of balancing when it comes to the area that you're in, the enemies you're fighting, and also the actual level that is being presented to you. And it's very difficult when you have bad equipment that's available to you, plus enemies that can one or two shot you or two tap you. And then the environment you're going through, which is very open in some areas, while confined in others. So I just gave up entirely. The only game that I genuinely liked was Demon Souls, because I felt that was the most balanced. And one of my friends let me know the reason why is it was the first Souls game that was ever made, so it's slightly easier. And I did enjoy that game. I did like it a lot, and I actually had fun playing it. I actually was able to kill a boss or two, which I couldn't say that for the other one. So since we were able to get the fuel for the boat, now we have to deal with Lago. And I think I mentioned in one of my streams that Lago and Ashley section will be removed from all my videos starting now. The reason why is because Lago's fight and Ashley have nothing to do with the challenges that I'm playing, and also they don't change, they're not anything different, they're always the same, and in all due honesty, they're both boring. I don't find Lago to be interesting to watch, and Ashley's section is long and drawn out and boring as well. So to save on time, I removed both of them in its entirety. I think I show to where I'm like about to kill Lago, but I cut out the rest of his boss fight, and Ashley I cut out the whole section entirely. So once you get all of the pieces for the statue, I automatically just fade into the next chapter. So I save you guys a lot of time in removing Ashley's section altogether. I'll be doing that going forward, removing both her and Lago. And also I removed all the backtracking as well, so you guys don't have to watch that either. The only backtracking I include is a backtracking that I have to do regardless, because for backtracking for an item or backtracking for something else. So now I will be showing towards the end of Lago's fight, which is only a couple of seconds, not even a minute. And then we get to go to chapter 4. Chapter 4 I genuinely thought was a nice change, because I'm glad they actually did something with the boat. And the other reason why I refuse to play this game on professional is because of Lago, due to the fact that when you're playing on professional, Lago heals in the water. So when he's underwater, he heals, which I don't know why Capcom would make that even a thing, to have him heal underwater. All the damage that you're doing, he's healing when he's going back in the water. So it just drags out the boss fight. And the boat, like, with 1 or 2 hits, your boat's destroyed. So you basically have to do his fight with minimal damage possible on professional. So that's why I don't play pro either, is because Lago's fight is incredibly tedious and annoying, even more so on higher difficulties. And the reason why I allow grenades is because of our squiggly friends, and for skips. Because if you guys seen my other videos prior, I do skips in the island when it comes to the chapter 15 with the turret. The reason why I do the skip is it cuts out a whole long section where you have to climb up this tall tower area with a full of enemies just to go on a turret to shoot it. So it's just better off just throwing the grenades and calling it a day, and going from there. I did forget on one stream one of the inputs to get one of the heads, because I wasn't really paying attention. Also, I was very tired, because I do play the games late at night, which I'm probably going to change the times, because I want to save times at night now to do audio to get caught up. So like in my newer streams minus Saturday, I might not talk, so I can get caught up on videos that I have to finish, like this one, and the pacifist run, and the no healing run. So once I get caught up, I would be able to play at night again. But starting forward, I most likely will start streaming at like 5 or 6 instead of like 9 to like 10, almost 11 o'clock, So, and since I don't work much anymore, I have more time to make content and stay up and do things. So, I'll be able to make more content for you guys. And I apologize that this video took so long, but it's very hard to come up with things to talk about for 3 hours straight. So it's not easy to keep talking because normally I'm a very reserved person, so it's kind of difficult for me to talk through this long video. So, and then once we get both heads, luckily I remember to grab the key because I remember a while back in one of my older streams, I forgot to grab the key and I went back to where the merchant is to go to where the fight is with Big Boy. And I'm saying to myself, where's Big Thick? And then I'm like saying to myself, oh, I forgot the stupid key. So lucky for me, I remember to grab the thing because I always forget to grab it. Or, like I said before, I either forget to grab the stupid key or I forget to grab the stupid pearl in Mindy Tendy's house. And for the most part, I don't find the village difficult because the enemies aren't hard to kill and neither is most of the bosses. The only one that's a pain is Lago, but once you beat Lago, Big Boy isn't as bad as long as you have a weapon that does enough damage to him and stay moving. And then Mendy Tendy, depending on what you're doing or what weapon you have, he can be very easy or very difficult. So, and that's it. Is I can't do the grilled cheese Mendy Tendy strat in this game because there's no incendiaries. Which I don't understand why they removed those grenades, because I noticed over time a lot of grenades that a lot of people use, I use grenades sometimes, not always, but they removed the incendiary and the flash grenades from Resident Evil 9. You only can have regular grenades and stacked grenades and that's it. And I'm saying to myself, I understand there's no plagas in Resident Evil 9, so you really don't need to have the flash grenades. And I do like using them to get away from enemies in a non-lethal way, like for pacifists for instance. But I just felt like a lot of the things in 9 were removed and were kind of dumb that they removed it. But I hope that the supposed story DLC for 9 is worth it. Because a lot of people have been speculating on what the story DLC is. All I know is that I just hope Grace isn't in it because I hate her gameplay. I don't hate her as a character, I hate her gameplay because it is so bad and it's not even Resident Evil, like old Resident Evil gameplay. It's not. I have played 1 and 2 from start to finish, and Grace's gameplay is nothing like the original Resident Evils. And the reason why I say that is Grace's sections are incredibly tedious and not fun to play. I would rather play on a high difficulty in a game that I do not genuinely like than play her gameplay. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's not that bad. It kinda is because it's not balanced and it's not fun to play is because her gun literally does no damage, and when you use a knife, she puts the knife in enemies. So if you don't kill the enemy, you can't get your knife back. And people are like, oh, Requiem is, you know, it's good to use. She only has Requiem for the very beginning of her game portion. She gives the Requiem back to Leon when he leaves. When she leaves, and she gets taken to Raccoon City. And then when you're in the lab, it's not that long with her section. So the majority of the qualms and problems I have is the very beginning with her. All her guns suck, and there's a lot of enemies, and you have to deal with the girl, which it was nice seeing another stalker again, like kind of like Nemesis or Mr. X, but she's not as fun to deal with as those two are. She's more annoying than anything because from what I heard on Insanity, which I'm not even bothering touching with a 40-foot pole, she kills you instantly on Insanity. So the entire time when you're dealing with her and regular enemies, you can't even get touched by her, let alone breathed on by her, because she kills you instantly. So what's the point? What's the point in playing Insanity when everything kills you in like 1 to 2 hits? And the only gripe I have with the Matilda is that it's not accurate. It has the same problem as the TMP when it comes to inaccuracies. It's not like steady, but I took a break from Resident Evil 9. I haven't done the Handguns only challenge in a hot minute due to the fact that I genuinely do not want to do the basement as Grace. I really do not want to do it at all. Because, it sucks. It's probably the worst part of Resident Evil 9 versus, the beginning section with Grace. The reason why I think the basement is the worst part of the game is due to the fact how much backtracking you have to do and dealing with the girl on top of it. The only good thing is that the girl gets killed off at the very end, and you have like little bits and pieces of Leon, but I feel like Leon was basically tacked on in some parts, and it was really lazy, because from what I heard, Leon section in Raccoon City was supposed to happen first and not at the end. And also, Leon was the one that was supposed to go to the hotel and not Grace in the beginning. So I just felt that they took 2 separate builds of Resident Evil 9 and stuck them together and called it a day. Because I think the original build was the whole Raccoon City section, because they did mention that they were making a multiplayer game set in Raccoon City. And when I was watching that brief clip of Resident Evil 9 with that build, one area in particular looked exactly like the area that Leon walks through, that you have to get the different parts for the detonator to blow up the gate. It looked exactly like that area. So I think they just took the build that was already done for Raccoon City and tweaked it, and then they build the whole entire sections with Grace after the fact. So that's why the game kind of feels like it's stuck together with duct tape. Like, don't get me wrong, the gameplay for Leon is really fun and kind of therapeutic when it comes to how fluid it is, but they should have just either made it a whole Grace game or a whole Leon game. Them going back and forth was not enjoyable at all. It was not fun. I genuinely did not like it. And I don't like replaying 9 because I don't like playing certain sections. Like, the whole section with her going to the hotel and playing as him in the street could have just been cut out completely. Same thing with the little girl when you're in Raccoon City, where Zeno shows her the footage. That could have been cut out too. That part really did not have any reason to be a playable section at all. They just probably wanted to have exposition or to show things, but you could have just done that in a cutscene. I don't think people would miss out on playing that part, because I think the genuine consensus is after the first time is fine, but anything after that is just eh. I'm sorry if I get passionate with Resident Evil 9, but the reason why I feel the way I do is when I play games for the first time, I like to experience it as it is, but once I start playing it a few times and I see the parts that a lot of people don't want to talk about, because the thing is, the reason why a lot of people don't like when I talk about games is because at times I get very passionate, and I'm not afraid to say like what parts genuinely suck, because I'm not afraid to be how can I say? I'm not afraid to say my opinions, because I really don't care what other people say regarding what my opinions are, because I was raised that everyone has opinions, and regardless of if you agree or disagree, people have the right to have them. So I can say that the game itself isn't terrible, it's just that the game is just stuck together with literally no rhyme or reason. Because people just like the fact the game plays well and looks good, but I personally don't like some sections due to the fact how poorly optimized they are and how tedious it is to play. Because I don't like tedium in games where it's purposeful. There's a difference between jank from when I was a kid, when I had to play games that had janky controls but were fun to play. But when you have games that function and that are meticulously done, but have such poorly designed areas where it's purposefully done and not unintentional but intentionally done on purpose, makes me irate, because someone sat down and it's like, yeah, this is good. It's not, for what it is. And I think if they gave Resident Evil 9 one more year and ironed out the issues, or like a couple more months to fix it, maybe it would have been better. But I felt that it was just a rushed game. And if they took, I know they took a whole chapter out of 9, but if they're taking that one chapter they removed and are repurposing it as a story DLC, I'm going to scream, because that is like the cheapest way of repurposing assets and selling it as DLC. Because you know how angry most of the fan base is going to be if they decide to do that? Because I remember hearing that they removed a whole entire chapter of the game, and that if they're gonna take that chapter and make a DLC for next year, and supposedly they're going to release it, from what I heard, after Code Veronica's remake. If they do that, fine, but if it's just going to be the chapter they removed and try to integrate it in the story, then I don't even know what I'm going to say to that. Because it's going to piss off a lot of people. I know it's gonna make me angry for the most part, due to the fact that they took out a lot of really cool stuff out of the game that could have made the game much better, but they just put what they had that they wanted to include together and just called it a day. Which I don't understand why they would do that in the first place. Is they're capable of making good games, they just wanna be lazy. And also, from what I heard, they want to make annual Resident Evil releases. And I'm saying to myself, why would you want to make annual releases? Because that's yearly releases. What are you going to tell me? You can do an entire Resident Evil game in a year? Like, what is this going to be, COD or Assassin's Creed? Where we're going to have Resident Evil cranked out, like, every year? Like, I don't understand why companies just can't have games that are passion projects where they put actual time into them. Nowadays, it's like companies just rush games out like they're competing to see what game can go out faster. I would prefer if a company actually put time and effort to make the game fun and actually complete versus selling people games that are barely put together. For what? Like, seriously. But for what? Nothing. That's why I miss the days when you bought a game, it was done. Now it's like you buy a game and it's like, oh, here's day one DLC, here's all of these patches. Like, what has gaming become? Like, seriously. And now you have companies that want to get rid of physical media entirely and basically make gaming into a streaming service like Netflix, but with games. That's why I'm glad I grew up when I did. When I grew up with games that actually were on the disc and that I didn't have to pay more money for. And I actually got to play them without internet or anything like that. And we're nearing the end of the village. I'm sorry if I go on tangents, but this is really the only way that I know how to talk for 3 hours. Because you guys see me play Resident Evil 4 Remake so many times to where I really don't have to, like, give a whole storyboard of what happens. I'm not really going to, like, go into, like, detail until much later where the challenge actually gets difficult, because challenge doesn't really start getting difficult until the castle and the island, and we're still in the village, almost going to the castle. We have like one more chapter before the castle actually starts, which chapter 7 is the bane of my existence, because you have the catapult section, which isn't too bad, then you have the stupid Guardador, which I proved that the Guardador is annoying due to the fact that it tracks you regardless of where you are. You could be on one whole side of the room not moving and the Guardador will know where you are regardless. So that's intentionally done by Capcom. They purposely did that on purpose. I proved it when I was doing knife only. I had to use the rocket launcher because I'm like, I gave up after like getting annoyed on how ridiculously consistent the Guardador was knowing where I was. Every time I tried walking, I would walk and it would know where I was regardless if I touched the chains that were hanging from the ceiling or not. But the cabin was inoffensive. Usually, depending on what guns I'm using or whatever I'm using, makes it easier or harder depending, but it wasn't hard by any means. It was relatively easy, which is nice for once, because normally this part, like you guys saw with the knife only run, was a nightmare. I barely was able to get through this part. But with the Matilda, it went by pretty fast. The only thing that I genuinely hate about the cabin is the fact that Luis is basically useless. Like, I like Luis's changes with how he is as a character. They fleshed him out and made him more interesting, because in the original 4, Luis was... You only saw him like 3 times and then he dies. This game at least gave him more character development and actually fleshed him out and gave him more screen time, which made him, you know, more likable in that case. But his AI sucks and he barely does anything. He'll just stand there like he is now and running around in circles. So he barely does anything. In the original, you can just leave Luis to kill all the enemies for you, and I showed that he's very accurate and actually helps you. But in this remake version of the cabin, no, Luis is as useless as Chris is in 6. I think both AI Luis and AI Chris can be friends because they both have the capacity to do nothing. So yeah. Once the brute's dead, you beat the cabin, and then we get to do the Bella Sisters section in Chapter 6. The Bella Sisters, surprisingly enough, was pretty easy in the knife-only run after I was able to figure out a way to beat them. Because, with the knife-only run, I have to, like, basically use the, flashbangs to kill them instantly with the knife, with the, stealth kill. And if you guys ever see me have Leon sway left and right, it's because I'm listening to music. Because sometimes when I listen to, like, dance music, you know, I, like, get into the whole vibe, thing, so that's why sometimes if you guys see my videos, that's why I do that. So that's like an indication if you guys ever see me do that, I'm listening to music. This part, I know you can go through it without initiating all the enemies, but I can never really ever do it, because I kind of suck at the whole stealth mechanics. Even when I play stealth games like, what is it, Metal Gear Solid. I play Metal Gear Solid not the intended way. Like, I suck at stealth completely, so I don't necessarily, I'm able to get through this part without initiating any of the enemies to appear. Which is kind of funny because one time I tried and I was so close to doing it, then somebody saw me like, okay. I think the one challenge I genuinely had a lot of fun doing was Pacifist, because I kept ditching Ashley. I kept leaving her. And it was rewarding to actually be able to finish Pacifist, because I wasn't able to do the original 4 with Pacifist because of the water room. The water room is much harder when it comes to Pacifist than the remake. So I wasn't able to really get past that, so that's why I said I failed it. Because if you guys think about it, if I even was able to get through the water room, I would still have to do the whole section with the clock tower. I would have to do this section with the knights. I would have to do this section with all of the Novistadors. Plus the double guarded door room. So I don't think it would have been possible even if I got past the water room. And also the island, the regenerators, plus the section with the key card, and the whole helicopter section would have been a dumpster fire and much worse than the water room. So I think cutting it off at that point would have been better. So I think it was a good call for me to cut it off at that point. But I think the only 2 challenges so far that I have attempted on this channel that I failed was No Healing and Pacifist for the original 4. All the rest of them I was able to complete, and I haven't finished the Good Boy challenge because I really haven't had the time or the energy to even attempt it, so maybe at some point I might do it, but it depends on if I feel like picking it up again. And then once we get to the Bella Sisters, we're almost done with chapter 6. Because after the Bella Sisters, there's a running part with Mendy Tendi, and then we fight Mendy Tendi, and then the village is done. I think I can agree with everyone that peak RE4 is the village. And a lot of people agree that the castle is way too long. I think they slightly shortened the castle in the remake, but I can agree in the original, the castle drags on way too long. So I can agree that it drags out, and it does, because I always split it into two sections. Is you have like the very beginning, and then the second half that I consider the second half of the castle is when you get to the clock tower. Is like considered the beginning of the second half. Because you have the whole section with the mine after that and stuff, so I consider that the second half. The beginning is like the water room, the sewer section, the part where you have to get the parts to open up the door, wall thing, or whatever. So, and I don't even know how I got damaged by that chainsaw. It like hit me like barely, and Leon was like, he recoiled like he touched something nasty. But yeah, I mostly use the Matilda. The Matilda carried this challenge for me. But I really don't use the red 9. I think I only use the red 9 to break the shields. And the castle. Because it's very hard to break them when you don't have the shotgun. The shotgun makes those very easy to do, but when you don't have a shotgun, it's very difficult to break the shields. And the metal shields and the island, I just shoot their feet. That's how I deal with them. I don't even bother trying to finagle it, I just shoot their feet and call it a day. Because that's basically the only way that I'm ever able to do that. And then once we start the castle, the challenge kind of shifts in a way, you'll see soon enough. But hopefully you guys don't mind me rambling, but like I said, I'm not used to doing the whole storytelling thing when it comes to challenge runs. I mostly try to talk about topics or other things to kind of fill in the gaps when it comes to talking, because like I said, I'm not used to talking this long in a video. Usually the video is like only about an hour or so, or a couple of minutes or whatever, not 3 hours and 43 minutes. This part, at least the enemies die in one hit, but I still find it funny that Mendez is like slowly sauntering towards you. Like, oh, you went through all of these things, but I'm going to chase you now, Mr. Kennedy. Poor Mr. Kennedy. He's just trying to run, and Mendy Tendi is chasing him. Oh no. The horrors. But we just have to fight Mr. Tendi, Mendy Tendi. Then we are able to go to the castle. The castle is just meh. Very meh. And if you guys say that the cat ears is cheating, it's not. All the cat ears does is it doesn't make the game easier, it just gives you infinite ammo. It's not like, it's going to be much of a difference. And then, Mendez, the only thing that sucks about this fight is that there's kind of like an invisible, timer where if you take too long, you'll die because of the fire spreading through the, slaughterhouse. Which makes sense, because everything's basically made of wood. And yes, I do suck at dodging the boards. Because I'm not good at, dodging, obviously. All I'm good at doing in these games is just holding and pressing the shoot button and hoping for the best. Because I don't pretend that I'm good at this game, I don't. I'm always transparent saying that I suck at this game, and I do suck at it. And now, since our dear friend Mendy Tendy is dead, we are going to go to leave the village and start our wonderful, long and boring trek through the castle. And let's just say the castle is just mid for what it is. Some parts are better than others, but chapter 10 can go die in a pit. I hate chapter 10 with so much disdain for it. I just genuinely hate that chapter. Whoever thought making it a giant room full of the Novistadors, just no. How they made the Novistadors in this game just sucks. You can't even, troll them or break their AI like you can in the original. They're just incredibly annoying for what they are, and I'm sorry if I'm yawning. I'm recording this at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so bear with me. But the Novistadors can go die. I hate them. I hate those enemies and the Guardadors and the castle 100%. They both suck. Guardadors suck because they can insta-kill you, and the whole tracking thing with the stupid AI, and the Novistadors sucking because the whole entire room is full of them. You can just be walking, mind your own business in the ballroom, and boom, there's like 3 or 4 of them chasing you through and trying to kill you. And you guys seen how much I enjoyed that with the no healing run, where I had to literally hope for the best that I didn't die, with them just barely tapping me. I had one, literally, I was trying to exit the area and it just decapitated me when I opened the door. So yeah, they suck. They're like the most annoying enemy in this game. And they're not even fun to deal with. Like, there's some enemies, you know, you like seeing because they're fun to deal with, or their mechanics, or whatever, but the Novistadors just are obnoxious. They're like the flying turds that don't want to be flushed. And I say that with the utmost certainty that they do suck. Every time I think of this part, I think of the fact that I ditched Ashley and I just stood by the stairs and she's just getting dropped constantly and screaming. I'm like, I'm sorry, Ashley, but I can't help you. I'm too busy trying to not kill the enemies, and you're like throwing a tantrum because I ditched you.
You alright?
And then They really didn't change this part that much. This part's relatively the same. The only difference is instead of a hand crank for the cannon, you just basically have to shoot the ball that's holding it down to the ground floor, and then that's it. Which I think is a little bit better than doing the hand crank section. And that's about it. Everything else relatively stayed the same in this part. The only other part that changed was the fact that you can use the cannon regardless, because in the original all you can do is shoot the gate or the door or whatever you want to call it. And that's it. This one at least you can actually shoot it to destroy the turrets and the enemies, which is nice. And then on top of that, when I first played this game, I didn't know that there was gonna be enemies that spawn in after you see, Mr. Kennedy, why did you break my door, Mr. Kennedy? That dude. I didn't know that there would be enemies that would spawn in after that cutscene, because I'm like, oh, am I just gonna walk? And it's like, nope. No, Mr. Kennedy. And then the other thing that I just realized is that the door that you need the parts for is gone in that section. Because after you talk to Salazar, the the door would drop, or the wall. But in this one, it's like, nope, we removed that and put in a whole different chapter for a whole different reason, which is stupid. Like, a lot of things that I normally would remember from the original, like, literally just went out left field after that. Because, they moved a lot of stuff around and, like, different parts. And it was just, when I first played this game, it was like a cluster mess. And I'm saying to myself, okay, it's fine. But now it's like, it doesn't bother me really anymore. The only thing that does is, like, when I play them, like, back to back sometimes I do a challenge, a 4 and 4 remake, I'll get confused with the controls, because one button in this game opens the case, but a different button in the remake opens the case, and then, like, the other one is like, oh, it opens, like, whatever, or the menu. It's confusing at times. But otherwise, it really doesn't bother me like it used to. And the only time I ever really went to the merchant was to fix my body armor, and that's about it, or buying other stuff. But I didn't buy any other guns or anything, because like I said, I always tell you guys what guns I use. I don't hide anything, because when some people do challenges, they either change the rules mid-game to make it easier. I don't do that, because I don't. I would rather be genuine and tell you guys the truth and be transparent than do anything else. And I'm surprised that the Matilda killed Big Boy very quickly. I was like, okay. I was dumbfounded with that, but... And yes, I do max out all the guns when I start the challenges. And you guys might say, why do I use New Game Plus files? The reason why I do is in case if I do a challenge run with specific weapons, I have the access to said weapons. Because sometimes when I do challenges that involve like the hand cannon or like a magnum or something. Like the Killer 7 you get at the very end of the game. And if I was going to do the Killer 7 on a new file, I wouldn't even have access to the Killer 7 until chapter 13, which is at the very end of the game. So I wouldn't be able to do that challenge unless I did a new game plus to have access to it. Because I don't use any mods or cheats or exploits or anything like that in this game. And skips, in my opinion, are not exploits. Because if they were, why did the Capcom allow the door in, not the door, the wall in chapter 14 be able to be weakened with grenades or rocket launcher, or how can the rocket launcher destroy all of the rocks blocking in chapter 11 if that was intendedly going to be done anyway. So that's why I do those and I don't consider them cheating, is because it was intentionally done by programmers to allow it to happen. But otherwise, I don't cheat with these challenges. I try to be as fair as possible. And we are nearing the water room, which is the water room. I think most people hate the water room. I have not met one person that genuinely likes the water room. I like it for its challenge, but I don't like it as an actual area you have to go through. I think the water room isn't as bad as the clock tower. I think the clock tower in the original is worse than the water room. I think that one's honestly worse. Just trying to get away from all of the enemies in the clock tower is worse than getting away from the enemies in the water room. Because in the original you can just hide out in the room in the back, kill almost all the enemies, and then just keep going. But the clock tower, you have to shoot the wood planks, which isn't hard, but after that you have to climb down the ladders and get out of the clock tower. Then you have the bridge with the enemies, and then you have the double guarded door fight. So it's just a gauntlet of, and it's a mess. And then after the water room, we lose Ashley. Which, I know it happens in the original, but when you lose Ashley in this game, it's not the same like in the original where you lose her for like a whole chapter and a half. In this game you only lose her for one chapter. So you have to go through the maze plus the cage area, then you get Ashley. In this game it's like you don't have, you have the maze with her, which I was saying to myself, like, it didn't make any sense that she would be in the maze with him. The maze happened before you get her back, so I guess they wanted to, like, for her to have more screen time with him, because in the maze she does help with one section with one of the banners, but and also the reason why she gets removed from Leon's different, because she gets afraid because the Plaga took over very shortly, very briefly, and she almost like attacked Leon. And she's like, I hurt Leon! And then she just like hides in like a room and like starts crying. I'm like, I understand you're scared and sad, but Ashley, get a grip. You know, like, chill. The archers in this area suck. The original, there's only 2 archers, but in this game they just like fill the room with archers. It's like an open fire season on Leon when it comes to archers. And also there was one time where I was watching a video a while back where poor Mr. Kennedy got an arrow to the butt. He got an arrow sticking out of one booty cheek. Yes. That was pretty funny that happened. It's always funny where he gets shot with an arrow and it just like sticks out of him for a couple minutes before it disappears. I think one time in one of my streams he got shot right in the head and it was just sticking out from the side of his face. And also, I kind of find it ridiculous that they combine 2 of the plagas together. Like, it shoots acid and it can insta-kill you. The acid ones were the ones that are still attached, but they're like fully grown. The plaga, that when you shoot it off, it like jumps off. Those were the ones that shot the acid, but they combined the ones that can insta-kill you with the ones that shoot acid. And the ones that used to fall off when you shoot the ones with the acid, those are just roaming around because they put a mechanic where the ones that run around can attach themselves to them and they run faster. Which is not a bad mechanic, it's just weird on how it's executed. I found an easier way to deal with them. If you have a flash grenade, you can just throw it and it'll instantly kill the plaga and then stun the enemy. So that's one way of dealing with them. I came across it, I think, when I was doing one of my challenge runs or when I was playing or whatever, but I came across it and I'm like, okay, that's an easier way to deal with that. So that's what I do from now on, besides shooting them regularly. And of course, it's a squidgely, because, you know, squidgelies always have to appear often on higher difficulties. So many plagas. So many. I had like 3 or 4 back-to-back. Ain't that nice? Ain't that fantabulous? And it's not fantabulous. But maybe one day I might continue the Final Fantasy videos on a different channel, because I do have another channel called Elven Tears, which I barely ever post on anymore because, in my opinion, it's very difficult to balance multiple YouTube channels. Because I wanted to make Elven Tears a new channel and then like retire this one. I was like, nah. So I kept this one. Elven Tears, maybe someday I might like post videos that are just RPG related, because I love RPGs. I've been playing it for like 15 years of my life. But the thing is, if I do go back and make RPG videos, I don't have like that many RPGs that I would be willing to stream or play, because most of the games are either way too long, or like in Dragon Quest XI's case, Square, you have to put this stupid TOS text in your description or in the actual video itself, so you don't get like flagged or your video get taken down or getting a strike or whatever. And I'm not in the mood to deal with that type of stuff when it comes to making videos, because I understand companies want to protect their assets, but some random person, Joe Schmo, playing a game on YouTube and showing it is basically free advertising for you. Like, you're allowing them to like play whatever your game or whatever. So when you start like striking people and basically being Nintendo, where they like striking people and removing and doing takedown claims or whatever, I'm not in the mood to deal with that type of stuff. It's bad enough that Square made it to where I don't want to play Final Fantasy X unless it's just boss fights. Because if you guys remember when I was streaming a while back on here, I still have the streams up, by the way. I didn't unlist them or anything. But when I was playing the game, when it was done and it uploaded onto my YouTube channel, it kept saying that I got content claims for the music. And I'm saying to myself, the music is playing, like, they striked me, they gave me content claims, and they were complaining that the video music played for like 4 or 30 seconds. I'm saying to myself, are you that, like, hard up to where you're basically giving me a content claim for a song that's playing for 4 seconds? Or like 30 seconds? It's like not that serious. I'm not, like, they don't seem to understand. I'm not even making any money off these videos, and I don't even want to in the first place. I do this for fun and to bond and chillax and have fun with my viewers. I don't even make a cent on these videos, so why are you guys, like, getting all butthurt over the fact that your music is playing in a video game? What, am I supposed to mute the audio? And also, Final Fantasy X doesn't even give you the option to mute the music. It doesn't even have an audio section anyway, like audio settings.
Okay, get back here.
It's just, it's stupid. And the reason why I refuse to do the part with Dragon Quest XI is when I saw that they expect you to write this long, drawn-out TOS thing just to stream because of the whole thing with the music, is stupid. Like, I don't get the concept of me putting credits for a game. And it's not just that one game. There's, every time you stream or you take a screenshot of any of their games, there will be like a credited thing on the bottom. Like, I would say like Bandai Namco, whatever, in the year. And that's like for anything. Like, I used to take screenshots because I would play, what is that? That Dragon Ball Z, Kakarot game. It would have that on the bottom. Same thing with Dragon Quest XI. So I will not be playing Dragon Quest, even though I want to, because the game is really fun. I genuinely like 11. But I refuse to deal with all of that garbage. I refuse to deal with it. I'm not dealing with all of that stuff. Same thing with Final Fantasy X, but maybe someday I'll finish up the boss fight tutorials. I'm surprised that they're blowing up now, because when I checked a while back, one video is almost at 200 views, so I'm surprised they're actually gaining traction after a couple of months, which is good. But maybe someday, if you guys are wanting to see it once in a while to break up the monotony of Resident Evil, I might, but I have to see if I want to even do that again. And the only one thing that I genuinely did not like that they included in the remake is the red zealots. They can transform these regular zealots into, like, with the plagas. I don't like the fact that they interfere with Leon's movement and also the ability to shoot. Like, I understand since Leon's infected, he would be affected by the red zealot, but it's very hard when you're trying to shoot them and Leon decides he has a migraine headache and has to hold his head. So, that was one of the only changes that they did in this game that I genuinely did not like. The rest of the changes doesn't really bother me. That's the only one that I honestly did not like at all. So once we get the stupid lantern, we can actually go and see Ada. They changed the area where you meet her because in the original you meet her after the maze, and this one you meet her before the maze, which kind of messed me up because I'm like, why are you here, Ada? And I'm like, ugh. But I think I did talk about the theory that I have with Ada, how Ada is basically a clone and the real one died at the end of 2. So that's my headcanon. I know a lot of people think it's a weird headcanon or they find it interesting. The reason why I think she's a clone is how she drastically changed her, the way she is. It's really strange. And also the other reason I feel though is she's cloned is I found it weird that after 2 she's like loyal to Wesker and only changes slightly because of Leon. And that's about it. It's just a weird thing. But I'm not a big Ada fan anyway, so the reason why I'm not a big fan of her is how she is as a character. I just find her to be a scummy person. And most people like, oh, she changes. Not really. She still uses Leon anyway. Because he deals with all the stuff that she's trying to, like, avoid to do her stupid mission or whatever. So, it is what it is. The only Ada that I actually like is OG2 Ada. That's about it. Original 4 Ada is fine. Remake Ada just sounds like an AI automated voice from a train station. And RE6 Ada is also fine, so I just don't like her for what she does. She caused so many deaths in 5 with all those people that got infected with the virus, that sample that she gave Wesker at the end of 4, and people say, oh, RE4 remake, she left and didn't give it to him. It doesn't matter. Canonically, in the original series that led into 5, she still gave him the virus sample. So it doesn't matter in the remake she didn't give it to him. He still would have got it from Krauser regardless. So either way, she did cause Resident Evil 5 to happen. So yeah, that's why I don't like her. Because I know a lot of people just excuse what she does because she's attractive, but I don't think your looks have anything to do with your character. Your character is what makes you who you are. Just looks are looks, they fade and they go away after a while. It doesn't matter if she's attractive. If she's a scummy person, it doesn't magically make it better or okay because she's attractive. Yeah, most people think just because she is, everything just magically gets better. I understand, like, she does some things that are morally gray, or she helps Leon, but 9 out of 10 times she just mostly helps him for herself, for the most part. I know she kinda changes in 6, but This chapter for this challenge wasn't too bad necessarily. I did use the boomstick for the big boy because that's one of the skips that I always forget to mention, because the development team for Capcom and probably put that for speedrunners, because I know the speedrun community is very popular with Resident Evil 4 Remake. I knew the other one is, the SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom game is also very popular with the speedrunning community. That's why I think we even got a remaster for it, or a remake or whatever, but the only thing that kinda sucks about this chapter is the big boy, because if you don't kill him with the rocket launcher, he'll just throw rocks at your window. Like, that Dr. Phil meme, but yeah, he'll basically pelt you with rocks, and the weird thing is with the rocks is that when they hit, they like break into like a bunch of pieces. So they just like do like a spread shot, and regardless you'll get hit. You'll have to like basically move a certain way in order to like not get hit by the rocks. So that's why I just hit him with the boomstick, so I don't have to deal with all the rocks and dodging them and stuff like that. I'm taking unnecessary damage. So that's why I just basically do that instead. It's faster that way, and it saves a lot of time. And like I said, it's one of the skips, but I always forget to mention the skip. I always forget it, because normally I just do it by instinct. That's why I barely mention that skip versus the skip in, Chapter 11 and Chapter 14, because I remember that one more to mention than this one. But this is like the starting point for where I really start to not like the castle after this chapter, because there is the Chapter 10, which is the bane of my existence on most challenges because of the Novistadors. And then after that is the mine, which sucks on higher difficulties because of the cart ride. That part does suck. And also after that is Krauser, which you know how much I love Krauser's fights in this game. And then after that, it's done. Chapter 12 is the last chapter, and it's not that bad, but chapters 10 through 11 suck, and chapter 9 is a longer chapter. Because ironically enough, this chapter was really short, because practically we're almost done with this chapter. The only part that isn't really fun is the very beginning with the Red Zealot, but after that, it's relatively easy. It's a pretty short and easy chapter versus the next chapter, which is quite long, because you have the maze, you have the section where you have to get all 3 pieces to open the door, and then you have to play Ashley, which I cut out for many reasons. And like I said prior in the beginning of this video, I believe that I'm no longer showing Lago or Ashley in any of my videos going forward, because they have nothing to do with the challenge that I'm basically doing. So there's no point in showing something that has anything to do with the challenge that I'm attempting, because they're not going to change regardless of the rules or anything like that. And also it saves time on the video. So from now on, I will not be showing either one of those sections, which I don't think you guys are missing at all, because in my opinion, they're like probably the most boring sections in this game, bar none. Like, Ashley's section is very boring. Thankfully there's the skip because the times don't change unless you're playing on a different difficulty. But otherwise they don't change at all the time. It's not like it's randomly generated every single time. And Lago, literally you have to kill him with the harpoons. It's not like I can just kill him with anything that I want like the other bosses. So that's why both of them will no longer be in the videos, and now we're at the end of Chapter 8. Chapter 8, like I said, is a pretty quick chapter. It's not long by any means. We're basically done with it. And then we get to do one of the longer chapters, which, like I said, is split into 3 sections. I think the easiest section of this is getting the 3 heads, because one, you can use a grenade to skip completely, and then the one with the snake head is very easy. The only one that's slightly a pain is fighting the knights, but other than that, that part's pretty easy. And Ashley's section is just boring and long, unless you do the skip where you put in the time on the first clock and then just do the puzzle with the lanterns and then leave, and that's it. So instead of doing the long way where you have to go and get the keys and then go back with the paper and have the time for the clock, so it's easier just to remember the time or just Google it on the internet and just skip it. But every time I get to the maze, I always say to myself, oh great, my chapter that I hate the most is next. And I'm like, oh joy, I'm so thrilled to deal with the Novistadors. The Novistadors in Chapter 10 are just as bad as Krausers when it comes to ruining my runs, because I'll be fine for most of the run, and then once I get to Chapter 10, it's like, oh great, I have to deal with this, you know, this stuff. But all I know is that I'm just excited that I'm able to give you guys a new series. I just hope that the next gun that I get is not the bolt thrower, because I don't want to go from one extreme to another extreme, because the LE5 is pretty easy to use. It's probably one of the more easier guns that are not that terrible compared to the bolt thrower. I think the other one that's probably going to give me a little bit of a hard time is the first shotgun, because I can't shoot from far distances like the riot gun, so I think that one is gonna suck. Not as bad as a bolt thrower, but it's going to be not as fun to use like the LE5 was, or how versatile the LE5 is. I think the other one also that's gonna be rough is the rifle, the first rifle. You get the wooden one, because you have to reload every time you shoot it, so I think that one's also going to be quite difficult, but I think everything else is relatively just going to be not that bad. I think the semi-auto one is going to be fine, and the riot gun is going to be fine. Sorry, I'm recording this around like 3 o'clock in the morning, so I'm kind of tired, but I can hold out for a little while. For the most part, I am excited to do the challenge. All I know is that to make it fair, I'm using a picker wheel. There's a random site that I found. I just typed in picker wheel, and I just put all of the gun names into the picker wheel, and then I just hit spin, and that's it. And then whatever it falls on, I have to do. So I'm going to delete all of the handguns, because like I said, I already proved that it's possible. I don't think removing or adding the handguns is going to change the fact that you can beat Resident Evil 4 remake with just the handguns, especially the Matilda. But I think it'd be interesting to see if the guns that aren't intended to carry you in the game can actually just carry you on their own merits. But I will allow a handgun for just your puzzles because you need it in the castle for the puzzle stuff regarding the room with the sword, like in chapter 7. But otherwise, that's really the only chapter you're gonna really need a handgun from what I remember at the moment. But besides that, I would only be able to use the gun that I have for that particular challenge and the boomstick for skips. It's just gonna be rough where I have to fight certain bosses with them. I think the more rough boss is gonna be Salazar because it's not like in the original where he's stationary, where you can kind of cheese it. But since he moves around so much, it's gonna be hard for me to aim with some of the guns that have scopes. I know you can remove the scope and make the rifle a little easier to use, but at the same time I have to aim the shots regardless by using the little crosshair on the rifle itself and not the scope. So I'm not gonna have fun having to do that. And surprisingly enough, in one of my more recent videos, Ashley got picked up and got walked off screen even with the armor on. I'm saying to myself, how is it even possible? Isn't she supposed to be immune to being picked up and carried off screen to where you get a game over? I'm like saying to myself, how is that even possible? I don't even know how it even happened. Like, I probably might show in maybe a small clip of what happened, but I was dumbfounded. I didn't even know that was even possible for that to ever happen, because for me it never did. Because I try to leave off screen because I think I was doing either knife only or something, and I was trying to run away because of the dogs, and she gets picked up and I'm like, okay, how did she get picked up off screen? I guess because I left the area while she was being carried and the game registered that she got taken away or something, but I don't know. All I know is that I just was completely and utterly caught off guard, and I didn't even know how to react to that. And I was confused. But this one is probably the easiest head to get. And I kind of find it ironic because it's in a cage, because around this point in the game you'd be fighting the Guardador and the cage with the zealots. And that's one part of this game from the original that I'm glad is not in it, because the cage is a difficulty spike that when you're playing on professional is like a death sentence compared to like other sections that aren't as bad in the original. So when I very first played this game, that I didn't have to fight the Guardador in the cage, I was so happy. I like how it's a nod to the cage without the cage actually being a thing. It was nice not to see it. And then this part was supposed to be before the clock tower. So when I first played this game, I was dumbfounded that they moved the night room. Because the night room is technically supposed to be before the maze, not before the maze, after the maze, but before the clock tower. So when I beat the maze on my first ever run of this game, and then I had to do this part, I'm saying to myself, why am I doing this part when this part's later? That's why I kind of got confused after a while with this game, because a lot of things they removed or changed or moved the placement of, especially in the castle. They really didn't do it in the village. The village they relatively kept the same and only like removed certain areas. But the castle, they like repurposed or moved areas to where they normally wouldn't be. I think the only area that relatively stayed the same was the very beginning, but they moved even the other parts too, so I think the only part that stayed the same was the placement of the Gardevoir in the water room. Because in the original, after you kill the Gardevoir, you go to the water room. So I think that's really the only part that stayed the same. And I'm sorry if I keep yawning, I'm kinda eepy. And the stupid knight wouldn't want to go down. I had to like shoot his stupid head multiple times. Bro is being very persistent. Very persistent indeed he was being. And of course Ashley has to be like, "Oh Leon, you saved me, oh joy." Oh. Oh joy is correct, Ashley. And then after this, all I have to do is get the head that I cheese. I found the skip online on YouTube. I do it because it makes it a hell of a lot easier. All you need to do is you take the grenade and you throw it just before the cutscene starts, and then before the grenade goes off, it should kill the zealot before he gets a chance to flip the switch and lower the bridge. So that's what I normally do, is I do that instead of actually doing it the intended way, which is actually having to fight the enemies, walk up the stairs, and then actually have to get the goat head. I don't know if it's a ram or a goat, but it's there, I guess. But after that, you guys will see a jump cut because I'll be cutting out Ashley's part. So I will be showing after I do this part, and when the cutscene starts, it's just gonna automatically start to chapter 11. I'm not chapter 11, chapter 10. I can't do basic math sometimes, ain't that funny? But yeah, after this, I will be showing immediately chapter 10 because I cut out Ashley's whole entire section. And chapter 10 is basically probably my most least favorite chapter, just due to the Novistadors and the double Gardevoir room. It goes from that to the double Gardevoir room to another section with a bunch of Novistadors, then you have to fight the Verdugo. I do like the fact that they kind of balance the fight, because in the original, the Verdugo is not balanced by any means. You would either have to use a rocket launcher, the Chicago sweeper, or typewriter, because that's what it was called in the original, or use a boomstick. They even give you a boomstick right before, like earlier, and they actually give you one for free. They don't do that in this game at all. They don't give you a free boomstick. You have to either buy one, or you have the infinite rocket launcher, which is only available on New Game Plus. So since we got all three heads, we start chapter 10 now. And let's just say I wasn't really enthused getting to this chapter again because it sucks. It's probably the most annoying out of all of them. I think other people would say that maybe chapter 11 or chapter 12 would be the more annoying chapter in the castle, or chapter 7. I'd rather deal with all those chapters than this one. This one I never genuinely liked regardless. The only time that this chapter really doesn't suck is when you have the infinite boomstick, or you're just playing to, you know, have fun, but this chapter is nothing fun. There's nothing fun about this chapter. I don't know what Capcom was on when they thought putting a big giant open room with a bunch of flying little death machines that spew acid at you and try to decapitate your head off your shoulders with their little bug arms. I don't even know what they were thinking when they did this chapter. This chapter is so bad. Like, I showed in one of my videos, my newest video that's now about a couple of weeks old now. I think I showed how annoying this chapter is when you have extreme restrictions. I like literally had died multiple times due to the fact that these things are relentless. And every 5 seconds you turn around and boom, there's another one. They like basically spawn in like roaches. The only difference is they don't run away when light is shown on them. They just stay and they just keep multiplying. And it's obnoxious. It really is. At least the ones in the original had really messed up AI, especially if they got stuck in like a loop. Because I know there's one in the underground area in the mine where it's like floating in the air and it's like spinning around in circles. They don't even do that in this game. Their AI is actually competent, but at the same time it's like too competent. But it's not to the extent of the Gardeadors where they know where you are regardless of your location. It's like not that consistent, but it's consistent enough to where they'll hound you down like flies to Duke, which is a pain. Especially when you just are trying to get to the switches to open the door. The easiest one to get is the one where you just have to climb the stairs and just go around the loop area. That's why I do this one first. Because I find this one to be a little bit more difficult because more of the Novistadors will come after you from both sides. So it's hard to stay away from them and kill them off. Versus the other way, which is a little bit easier. That's why I normally save that for last and then go and do the other section, which is the other part, which is much easier. Because there's more room to move away from them, and also there's not that many that spawn in because most of them are trying to camouflage themselves. So it's not as bad versus this section, or this part. And also, the other one is better to save for last, is because once you flip the switch and drop down, it puts you right almost near where the gate is, so you can just make a run for it. If you do this one last, you'll have more to walk to actually get to the gate. So it's just best to do this one first and do the other one last, and then just make a break for it for the gate. As I think this part is technically supposed to be the part in the cave. Because the switches were to turn the lights on to open the gate, but they changed it to just a regular gate with switches. Or levers, or whatever you want to call it. So I think that's what they did. Which doesn't make any sense, but at least they kept the same premise. Which is, 2 switches, opens gate, and run away. And, they like to, hide very, easily to the point where you're just minding your own business and they just bamboozle you from another part of the room or behind you. But like I said, when I play this, I can't hear my game audio at all, so I can't hear if anything's behind me or anything is hiding anywhere near me, because I won't know. Because when I play this back, I can hear the noises, but when I'm streaming, I can't, because all I can hear is myself speaking somewhat. Because I'm, you know, like I'm talking, but there's like no way of me to hear the game itself. It's not like my PS5 where I use my controller. Same thing with the PS4, but the PS5 you can hear the game through the headset, but I can't hear myself, which that's why I always ask you guys if my mic's working fine, because I can't hear at all. Because I don't have two mics where one is to control myself's audio and then the audio for the game. I don't have that luxury at the moment. Because I do this mostly for fun and to hang out with you guys. I really don't have an intention to make this a job like most people do. I just do this for fun and hang out with my community because I really enjoy making content for you guys, and I have fun just chilling and doing my streams. But this part I do use the boomstick because I genuinely do not like the double guarded door fight in this at all. I would rather deal with the one in the original. The one in the remake, the AI is way too frustrating to deal with, and I really wasn't up to dealing with the garbage of both of them, so I know most people like, oh, it's a cop-out. I just don't want to deal with them. Like, I don't want to deal with the big thick in Chapter 8. I don't want to deal with the guarded doors in Chapter 11. Not Chapter 11, Chapter 10. The only good thing is after this chapter, you do not see them ever again, which is nice because I would rather deal with the jellos than deal with the guarded doors, because you can stun lock them very easily compared to the guarded doors. The guarded doors are a lot harder to stun lock unless you have a gun that just keeps shooting constantly. And you can get them in a loop where they're constantly turning around, but the regenerators, you can just keep shooting them and you'll stun lock them after a while. That's what I normally do with a magnum, like the hand cannon, which I will not be doing a video on because obviously you can beat Resident Evil 4 Remake with the hand cannon, because the hand cannon basically insta-kills mostly everything and anything, minus certain enemies and the bosses, of course, but otherwise it's pretty broken and I'm not making a video on it. There's no reason to. You guys probably know that any of the magnums you can beat the game with. I think the only time it would be hard to beat the game with the mags is in the original because you don't have a means of infinite ammo. Unless you get the hand cannon, which for me would basically be impossible because I suck at mercenaries, so I'm probably never going to own the hand cannon. But ironically enough, I did unlock the hand cannon the way through the mercenaries minigame in this game versus getting it in the remake. Not the remake, the original. And I usually take my time in this area because of the novistadors. Because you have to have like a good reflexes to actually be able to shoot them without getting hit. That's why I always take my time and not rush in this section, because one misfire and you're basically going to get hit. And they do a decent amount of damage. So I always try to take my time so I don't get hit and I don't get attacked by these little buggers, which I loathe entirely. I would rather deal with the original counterparts, not the remake counterparts. And we do see them again in Chapter 11 with Luis, and you know how much I do not like Luis's AI. I like him as a character and everything else, but his AI is pretty much useless. So, you're basically carrying another person. So, yeah. But he's not a bad character, his AI sucks. So we're nearing the Verdugo. The Verdugo, I do use the boomstick because I just wanted to get this challenge done. Normally I just do that and call it a day because his boss fight takes way too long. It drags out. You can like wait out the elevator and just make a run for it, which I don't think I have done before, or if I had, I really don't remember because I've played this game so many damn times. Everything just merges into each other. Like all of the different runs just converge because there's like some changes but not many. I think the only ones that were significant changes was the no healing and the knife run because they're so restrictive to the point where they're like obvious that they're completely different from each other. But when I just switch out guns or I just switch out certain things, it's not as significant. But when you remove like a core gameplay, or like even with pacifist, same thing. When you remove something that's specifically Resident Evil from Resident Evil, it just makes it different. But when I just change guns around and stuff, it just merges and meshes together because it's basically the same thing, but it's an easier time or a more frustrating experience. And I think the most frustrating will be the bolt thrower because the bolt thrower barely does any damage. So I hope that that one would be the last one I do because I don't want to do it the next time around. But knowing my luck, and you guys know the type of luck I have, it most likely will be chosen and I'm not going to have a good time. You guys think that the knife run and the no healing run was going to be frustrating? Oh, just you wait and see how frustrating that one's going to be. Where the damage is basically getting slapped around with a pillow. That's basically how the damage feels like. It feels like you're getting smacked around with a pillow and not much else because it really doesn't do any damage. You have to like really shoot them a couple of times or use the mines, but if you use the mines you would have to you would lose that bolt and you wouldn't be able to pick it up anymore. So basically the only way you do any type of damage is with that, but at the same time you would have to craft the bolts and the mines. Like there's some areas and I think chapter like in the village that does give you bolts because I think in chapter 5 on one of the pews there's bolts, and then up in the attic area there's mines, but I don't remember any other times where they do give you free bolts because most of the time you would have to craft them yourself and you would need the knives to do it. There's plenty of points in the game that give you knives for free, but it takes precious inventory space from you, so why would you hoard all the knives to make bolts for a gun that's relatively the worst one in the game? Now, Chapter 11, for the most part, is predominantly just the cart sections. I think the cart sections make about 50% of this chapter. The other 50 is the big boys and Krauser, and that small section after the last minecart section with all the Navistadors. I do the skip to cut the TNT section because of the chainsaw. I think there's the Salvador, and I think there is another one in that area. I haven't done it for a while, so I really don't remember what other ones there are, but it's not too bad. But I just wanted to get to the big boys. The big boys are fine for what they are. It's just trying to deal with both of them at the same time is kind of rough, but I really don't find this boss to be that difficult. The only thing that is hard to do is that the big boys in this game aren't as dumb as their original counterparts, to where if you try to open the vat for them to fall in, they'll actually move out of the way. So it's a lot harder to get them actually in the vat to kill them, so it's just best to just kill one at a time. Kill the unarmored one first, and then after Luis is able to get the TNT, you just shoot the other one and then call it a day. So that's like the easiest way to do it. That's what I normally do, but yeah, and also the other thing that I kind of found to be pretty funny is the fact that, if you guys remember, recently I did fight the El Gigante with just a knife. That was pretty hilarious. Leon was basically channeling his inner Chihuahua. I don't know how I'm going to kill both of these with just the knife only. I might try to use the vat or use something else, because I don't think it's going to be possible to kill both of them with the knife. Yeah, but if you guys noticed, he moved out of the way. So it's kind of harder now to actually use it, because in the original, all you had to do was time it a certain way and one would fall in, but in this one it's much harder to get them to go in the vat. I think on higher difficulties it's harder, but I don't know if it's easier on assisted or standard. I don't think I have attempted to do that, if I remember, because I played this game too many times, like I said, to where everything just meshes together and everything basically just becomes one instance. And I like how Luis just really doesn't do much. The only good thing about him is he deters the big boys towards where he is, but that's about it. He's pretty good to be like a decoy, but that's about it. That's all he's really good for in this game. But I do like him as a character. I did enjoy his character development, and I did enjoy his screen time, because in the original all he got was 3 cutscenes and that was it. He did get more if you played Separate Ways, but we don't talk about the original Separate Ways because it's terribly balanced between, oh, that was pretty funny, the big boy got stuck in the wall, but the original Separate Ways, I didn't play the remake Separate Ways because I'm not paying $10 to play as Ada. So in the original Separate Ways, it's really poorly balanced. Like, they would have you fight, there was a section in the island where it was like, it's some kind of dock area, and you had to like fight a bunch of enemies, and there would be like these turrets that would shoot at you plus the enemies, and you had to like get off one of the boats before it exploded on top of that. But by far the worst part of that specific part of Separate Ways was fighting Sadler. That was by far the most frustrating part of Separate Ways. I've only played Separate Ways twice for Original 4, and I will never do it ever again, because Krauser's easy. But Sadler, on the other hand, no. The only way that I beat him after him kicking my ass like multiple times was actually cheesing it by using the knife by stun locking him. If I wasn't able to stun lock him, I don't think I would ever be able to get the Mafia outfit and the Knight outfit for Ashley in the original. That was really difficult, but like I said, I don't plan on ever playing Separate Ways, because I'm not paying $10 just to play Ada. I really don't like her, and I'm not paying $10 just to play as her or arrow per section from Resident Evil 4 Remake. If it was free and it wasn't a paid DLC, or if it was like $2 or $5, I would, but not for $10, no. Not for $10, no. And I still haven't beat Resident Evil 2 Remake. I don't know if I'm ever going to do challenge runs of RE2 Remake because the game is kind of long at times and I barely play it. So it's like I really don't remember where everything is or what you're supposed to do, and I never got to the lab. The farthest I got, I think, was the sewers, which was the sewer puzzle with the chess pieces, but other than that, I never got past that part that I know of. Or I got to the part with Birkin, and then after that I just stopped playing. I still prefer the original 2 over the remake. I think the remake mostly has better gameplay and better graphics, but the story and the characters are much better in the remake, not the remake, the original 2 than the remake. They have too many inconsistencies and plot holes in the remake story. Like the whole 2 Mr. X theory and the multiple plot holes and inconsistencies with Claire and Leon is just not the greatest. And the other thing that I didn't like was the fact in the original, Claire and Leon did have a few interactions with the walkie-talkie, but in the remake they only see each other twice and that's it. And also, in the original, Leon did meet Sherry because in one of the, I think it's scenario A, Leon does find Sherry in that room where Ada was, and he has to carry her. Like, that did happen in the original. I don't think it happens in the remake. So, which is a shame because there's really no interactions with the characters, which they had interactions, but they didn't, have them in the remake, which is a shame because in my opinion the characters interacting with each other makes it a little bit more interesting and gives the characters more time to interact and grow with each other and develop together. But when you remove it, there's no interaction or growth between both of the characters, so what's the point? But I still find it funny when Leon meets Sherry and he's just like, okay. And he looks entirely uncomfortable and it's kind of funny. But basically that's really the only part that I found to be funny, minus some parts of it. But I really didn't care for that remake too much. It's fine for what it is, but and I still haven't come up with anything for our 200 subscriber special once I hit 200. It's either going to be Code Veronica or Resident Evil 3. I haven't played Resident Evil 3 yet. That's probably one of the only Resident Evil games that I haven't played, minus 7, 8, and 3 Remake. From the original, from the main timeline, not any of the spin-offs. As I know, like, Operation Raccoon City is really bad, and I have no interest playing the Outbreak series. I really don't have any interest in playing those. I did see, like, gameplay of it. Like, the actual premise is interesting, I'm not really a big fan of those types of games. I mostly like play games alone because the game is kind of intended to have more people play the game with you, because I think like it have the like really like primitive internet service for it, so you can play with your friends. but it wasn't like something that I would necessarily want to play. I mostly like playing single player games where I really don't have to play with people. Because for most of my life as a gamer, I was mostly a single player gamer because that's all I had. I really didn't have like I didn't always have like people to like play a game with half the time. So I mostly played games that were just single player games. They did have like co-op like mini games or like certain types of co-op aspects, but it wasn't like a make or break thing. So where it was like predominantly just the game. It wasn't a full co-op experience, which was nice because sometimes it's nice to like have someone to play a game with, but when you're so accustomed to playing a game alone, it's not like a very easy switch to turn on and off. So that's why I really don't play games that have co-op or multiplayer modes or mechanics. Like RE5 I will not play at all unless I have someone to actually play with to control Sheva. But RE6, the only campaign, like I told you guys, I won't do is Jake's, because what you have to do in Jake's campaign, you really need someone to actually do it. Because the one part with Snack Pack with the ice is a pain to have to do that with the AI, because the AI doesn't want to work with the player at all when it comes to that part. I don't want a repeat of the incinerator with Sheva with Sherry with the ice. So that's why I won't play Jake's campaign. Like, I like Jake as a character. It's just a shame that he was underutilized and he was just shown in one game and that was it. Like, Capcom has this weird fascination where they'll like have a character that they actually introduce in one game and you never see them again. And they still live, it's not like they die or anything, but they just basically dump them off and never use them ever again, which is a shame. As I did like Jake, I was happy to see that Sherry was in RE9 because I really do like Sherry. I have not met one person in the Resident Evil community that does not like Sherry. Sherry is one of those beloved characters, so it's nice to see that Sherry was in RE9. But I know like a lot of people are disappointed, like Barry, Rebecca, Carlos really don't get that much love anymore in the series. They really don't get any screen time or any games. Same thing with Claire. I'm even surprised Capcom is even making a Code Veronica remake. The only thing that I'm worried about Code Veronica's remake is if they remove some of the key points in Code Veronica, and you guys know what I'm talking about, that basically makes the story the way it is. So I hope that if they do remove it, most likely they will, they find a way to make that plot twist still effective. So I just hope that they find a way of doing it. And also the other thing is that I know a lot of people complain that the backtracking is bad and the fact that you can soft lock or get lost very easily. I hope that they do fix that as well. And it wouldn't be Resident Evil if there wouldn't be any backtracking, but from what I heard, the backtracking in Code Veronica is pretty bad. So if they do fix that or make it less a pain to do, that would be good too. But I just hope that they don't try to put the connections or something else in the game, because the connections I don't even think existed yet. So that's the one thing that I would genuinely not want to deal with is if they try to assert like Resident Evil 8 or 7 into Code Veronica, because Code Veronica didn't even take place at that point. Because Code Veronica was around, I think, between 2 and 4 or something like that. So, why would you try to assert the whole connections in RE9 into Code Veronica? That's the one thing that I genuinely don't like about the remakes, is that the remakes contradict or basically ruin the continuity and the plot from the originals, and basically retcon, remove, or completely change. Like, for instance, Leon was in Operation Javier, but they changed it in this game, which in my opinion was really stupid, because it defeats the purpose of the whole thing what happened with Krauser, to where he doesn't like Leon. Because when they were, if I remember correctly, in Darkside Chronicles, Leon worked with Krauser with that whole operation, and then Krauser suffered an injury with his arm, and then after that he kinda had like some kind of resentment towards Leon. And then in Resident Evil 4, that's the whole reason why he wanted that whole like power trip thing, was because of his injury, and his arm that he was injured wound up mutating. So when they removed that from the remake and repurposed it and said, oh, like Krauser's mad because of X, Y, and Z, and I'm saying to myself, what does that have anything to do with Leon? Nothing. So, and also, they've retconned so many things. I know in RE9, they retconned the whole thing with the nuke and Raccoon City, because the nuke in Raccoon City was orchestrated by the government. But in the remake, it's like, oh, no one ordered the missile to be fired. I'm like, why did you retcon something so simple as who hit the boomstick for the nuke? Like, who did it? It's really dumb. It really is dumb that they retcon something so simple as who fired the nuke for Raccoon City, just because they want to give an excuse to have the connections. Like, don't get me wrong, the connections, I really didn't play 8 or 7, so I really don't know who the connections are. But from what I heard, it's an interesting premise, but at the same time, are we just going to put the connections in every game going forward? Because you have, supposedly, if they're going to try to do it in Code Veronica, they had it in Resident Evil 9. So it's like, what's the point of having anything else but the connections? Because Capcom is like obsessed with them now for some odd reason when it comes to plot relevance. But I have no idea. And in this chapter here, they merged the lift and the clock tower, which I didn't mind at all. I didn't find it to be annoying. It's not that tedious, but after this, we're almost done. Because after this, we just have the island. And the island isn't as bad as the original's island, but I still don't like the island. I think the island is like the short end of the stick for Resident Evil 4. It starts really good, the castle's really long, and then the island's short and very tedious. There's like a lot of sections in the island that I know a lot of people don't like, especially the part with the helicopter section and the section that I'm glad that they removed, which was the keycard section. The keycard section always sucks. that part got removed in the remake, which I'm happy got removed because I never liked dealing with it. But that part was annoying. And then on top of that, the other part that I was happy that was removed, besides that part, was that they kind of changed the helicopter section a little bit and made it slightly easier. Because in the original, there was JJ at one of the by one of the doors that you had to open, and then you also had the part where if you were playing on professional, Mike would barely do anything for you. At least in the remake, even if you're playing on a high difficulty, Mike still does things. Is if you guys remember the long part where I had to hide in the tent until Mike decided to shoot the first turret. Yeah. That's how annoying that part is. For the most part. That's why I don't like dealing with the helicopter section in the original. The remake's helicopter section's much easier. The only part that kinda sucks is at the very end with the door. But other than that, it's not as bad as the OG. I think the OG is worse. It's much longer, more enemies, and Mike is pretty much useless in the part with the helicopter versus the remakes. After this part with the lift, we will be fighting Salazar. This fight is kind of annoying because he moves around a lot, and the stupid acid or whatever gunk he shoots out, but other than that, it's not as bad. I was surprised that they changed the boss fight because most of the bosses stayed relatively the same, with slight differences. But when they showed that he was actually moving around and they removed the tentacles, that was kind of a surprise when I had to fight it for the first time. And getting the stupid trophy for this part was not fun at all. I got it a while back. I cheesed it because I had to remember where all of them were, and I just used the infinite rocket launcher to get this trophy. I still haven't platinumed this game. I have to do the 2 shooting range challenges and I'll be able to platinum this game. I normally don't platinum games that often. So, and of course the enemy had to jump on just before it hit the very top. And now we have reached the end of chapter 12, which is nice. We finally get to leave the castle and head to the island. And the island in the beginning isn't too bad. The only part that kinda is annoying is the part where you have to get the key card at the end with all of the jellos, or in this case the jellers. But besides that, it's not that bad. It's just really hard for me to like figure out what to talk about because normally the videos that I make aren't as long, but I wanted to do a long form content video for you guys so you can kind of see how the challenge was for the most part. But probably going forward I might just make them slightly shorter. But I really don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't know if I'm going to just show the most important parts and maybe some sections, but I'm not really sure on how I want to tweak the videos to make them not as long but still entertaining. I'm still learning in that regard. But I'm just glad that my videos have gotten better, because prior to this, when I first started streaming, my videos were just basically me putting my phone in front of a TV and calling it a day. But now you guys actually get clean content with good quality videos that are not recorded with a cell phone. Because almost all of my old videos are unlisted because the quality is horrible. I think the only original videos I have up are the ones that I screen recorded on a tablet, so all the rest of them I'm probably never going to have them be public anymore. And that's where he clipped through the bridge. But this boss fight is nasty though. He's just like a little like gremlin looking blob thing. It's kind of fitting because he was like really tiny and now he's just a weird blob plant thing. I know you could throw the egg on him, but I wasn't wasting the egg. You don't want to do a disservice to Wession with his little, his egg. But I did draw him as an egg though. Little, Wesker bean. I draw, like, bean versions of the Resident Evil characters, and I did draw Bean Wesker as an egg. So, poor little Wesker. Just imagine throwing a little Wesker egg at, at Salazar. That would be pretty funny. That would be very amusing to do that to poor Wesker. He'd be like, how dare you throw me at such a awful creature? How dare you, Leon? But I don't even think Leon even ever met Wesker. Canonically, I don't think. Supposedly he's met him in like a comic or something, but he never like physically met Leon in any of the games. And Zeno doesn't really count, because Zeno isn't Wesker, even though he's probably a clone of Wesker, but he's not like actual Wesker. And once we beat Salazar, we're about halfway, almost done with the game. I think if they made the castle slightly shorter, it would have been better, but the castle is still way too long and drawn out. But it kind of makes sense. And I had to do the Shiggy Wiggy because long elevators. I know that back in the day, like with Jack and Daxter and Ratchet, they would mask loading screens with elevators or like doors that took forever to open, so you didn't have to wait through load screens, which I did like because it felt that the game wasn't had a bunch of loading screens. But I think the worst loading screen will always be Sonic 06. Sonic 06's loading screens are absolutely terrible. They are by far the worst loading screens you'll ever have in a game. I know most people would say other loading screens are worse. No, Sonic 06's loading screens are by far the worst loading screens ever. And the reason why I say that is Sonic 06 loaded for everything. Even a simple text box had a loading screen. You would have a text box, and then you would have a loading screen. Then you would play a little bit, then a loading screen. Then a loading screen for beating the actual mission, and then a loading screen for the results, and then a loading screen to bring you back to the game. Like the main hub area. So like everything had to have a loading screen. If it was a level, dialogue, a mission, results for the level or mission, it was just so much loading. Even cutscenes had loading screens. And now we reach the very end of Resident Evil 4 Remake, starting with Chapter 13. Chapter 13 has multiple parts to it. The very beginning is with the searchlights, and then after that is the trek to the area with the key card, and then after that, that's about it. I think the only hard part with the key card is the last one where you have to get the level 3 key card is probably the worst one. That one is kinda sucky. And then on top of that, we have another part that kinda sucks with this, is that I normally try to shoot the searchlights. I always try to shoot the searchlights, but I was never able to do this section without alerting the guards at all, or the enemies. It was normally, and also, in the original, there was a JJ that would appear, where that, little area is with the laser off to the side. But of course, they removed JJ. I like JJ, I just didn't like the fact that he would always kick my ass in this game, but he's not that bad if you can stun lock him with a rifle. I think I showed you guys in one of my OG4 videos. But it was a shame that they replaced our boy JJ with a boar with a little minigun that shoots arrows or bolts or whatever it is. That was a shame that they did that to our boy JJ. They did change the puzzle with this part, because originally you would have to turn searchlights to open the door, but in this one you have to redirect these lasers that will insta-kill you, because it's just a bunch of bullets that shoot at you at once. So you have to avoid it. So you have to basically redirect them a certain way so you can go to the door, which is kind of lame, but I guess they just didn't want to redo the one with the reflective mirrors to open the door. I guess they felt like they didn't want to put the effort to doing that, so they just made the lasers. Which, it's fine. It's not that hard anyway. You just move, redirect one, and then you go back and redirect the other one and go around. And after this, we get to do the chapter I don't like, which is chapter 14. 14 genuinely sucks. Because we have Krauser, and we also have the part with the puzzle that I really don't like doing, which is the one where you have to redirect the electricity. I really prefer the DDR looking puzzle from the original 4, so there's a few of those puzzles in chapter 14. But for the most part, there is the fight with Krauser. And Krauser, for his fight in chapter 14, is a pain. that fight is frustrating. It's pretty much a gauntlet for the most part. Browser's fight, that's basically what it is. It's like kind of a last hurrah before the final, hurrah at the end. With 15. But I always say the island technically has 3 chapters and not 4, because chapter 16 is not really a chapter in my opinion. All it is just walking, 3 Novistadors, and a boss fight, and then the jet ski, which I did remove the jet ski section because that section has nothing to do with the challenge at all. So after I beat Sadler, I just automatically bumped it to the results screen, and that's it. I felt, why am I gonna show the jet ski section when it has nothing to do with the challenge either? Because I think you guys seen the jet ski section enough, like Ashley and Lago, so that's also got removed. So I removed those 3 parts from videos going forward. And the only enemies that really stuck in this area are the ones with the metal shields versus the wooden ones in the castle. I did like the fact that they actually made it metal and not wood, because I kind of felt like the enemies in the island were just like reskinned enemies from the castle, so it's nice that they actually made enemies that actually did not feel like repurposed zealots, because they even kind of sounded like the zealots and also had like the same weapons also as the zealots, so it actually felt nice that they actually made these enemies different from just copy paste or repurpose assets, which I do like. And of course there has to be a truck early in the morning. 4 AM mind you, almost 5 o'clock in the morning. And then on top of that, we're about halfway towards the part with the Jellos. The Jellos, or Jellers in this case, aren't too bad considering. I don't really mind them as much, but the only thing that's kinda went out left field for me when I first played this is that the Jellos run. Because if you guys remember in the original 4, they're like really slow and they like shaunder over to you, but in the remake they made them run, which kind of made them slightly harder. I think the other thing that was pretty funny that they did with the Jellos is that they made it to where the Iron Maidens aren't even their own separate entities anymore. They just made them a mutation of the regular Jellos, which is kind of annoying that they just made it a mutation and not just a separate entity, because in later chapters, I think the one that appears is in chapter 14 when you have Ashley. So that was kind of rough, having to deal with the Iron Maiden, and then there's another set of Iron Maidens in chapter 15 before the last hurrah before you get Ashley again and have chapter 16. Also, I think I cut out the walking section at the end of chapter 15 because that section, I did like it when it my very first playthrough, but after that I just got tired of having that long walking section with Ashley at the end of 15. So I did cut that out too. And from now on, I most likely will cut out that section as well. I won't include it. I'll just have it immediately start chapter 16. Because I don't know why they had to make it a very long walking section. I know that they wanted to show how dire straits Ashley and Leon were in, because they were basically almost dying at that point, and how to get the Plaga out. And it was good that they kind of explained why there was just some random chair in a room that could remove the parasites, because in the OG it was never explained who put that chair there and why it was there in the first place. So it was nice that they actually put some kind of context to it with Luis, at least, that there was a rhyme or reason that it was there and whoever created it, because I always found it weird that Ashley and Leon just get away from Sadler because of Ada, and then you just stumble upon a random chair and be like, ooh, this can remove the Plaga, and I'm like, who made the chair in the first place? Like, why is there a random chair that magically removes the Plaga from people? So I was happy that they actually made sense with that. And now we get to deal with our favorite squishy, jiggly beans that are the Jellos. And yes, it is not fun having to shoot them with the Matilda. It took a while just to kill one of these because I don't have the scope for any of the pistols. Don't have any scopes, not like in RE9 where they do. But in this game, the Jellos are not fun to deal with not having the bioscope. But it wasn't as bad as the originals where you needed to kill them. In this game, they made it slightly easier because as you damage them, you'll be able to see the Plagas, so you'll be able to shoot them without having the scope. But in the OG, you have to have the scope to kill them. But in this one, you don't, which is nice. But it just takes a while to get the Plaga to show. Nice pairing, Mr. Kennedy. I don't even know how I dodged that. They just like basically squared up versus each other. Yeah, they were squaring up against each other. Like what's good, bro? What's good? I tried using a regular handgun and I was like, nah, it's not doing nothing to this. So I just switched to Matilda. And now the Jeller is going to attack me yet again. Ain't that lovely? The jiggle physics. I still can't believe they gave it jiggle butt physics. Like, they caked out the Jello. Like, why would you cake out an abomination like the Jello? Like, why did you give it cake for? And let alone half of their body like explodes and then all that's left is just the cake. I'm like, why would you have its butt and legs be the last thing that pops like a pimple? Like, seriously? Like, why? I know that's also in the original too, that the legs and the booty and the feet are the last thing that like explodes after you kill them. But I just always found that to be really funny that they actually included that. That never made sense to me, but I always found that to be kind of humorous that they included that and made that a thing with the regenerators. Because I know a lot of people are scared of them and don't like them. Like, originally when I very first played Resident Evil 4 Original, I was scared of them. Like, I refused to leave the room where you get the key card in the original. But after so many playthroughs and runs and stuff, I kind of got desensitized to them, because usually in games, like an enemy or something that used to scare you doesn't scare you anymore after so many times seeing them and dealing with them, because you get kind of desensitized to the enemy or whatever it is, and it doesn't bother you anymore. Like, I find them to be more annoying than scary. And besides, they just look like jello that's been sitting out for like decades in like a sink or something like that. That's what they remind me of, so that's why I call them jellos or jellers to begin with. And the reason why I call RE4 remakes jellers is because they kind of like are extra thick versus the originals, so they're like kind of like mega thick, so I call them jellers because they're so yeah. But we're almost done with chapter 13. We just have to get to the third level key card, which, like I said, is probably the more harder section of this chapter, due to the fact that there's an entire room of jellers. There's 4 of them, and I do like the fact that Capcom kind of trolled the players by putting a grenade on the table for you to use. Like, some person would be dumb enough to take it and throw it, and all of them would come out of the tanks. That's why I always recommend to kill one at a time, because you only technically have to kill one of them, but the reason why I kill all of them is because when the enemies start filtering in the regular ones, they have dynamite sticks, and if they throw it and it explodes and hits one of the glass containers, the jellos are gonna come out. So that's why I kill all of them first before I even put the key card in the reader. Because if you try to do it beforehand, you'll just wind up dying or getting overwhelmed, because you'll have the regenerators plus regular enemies, and it's rough having to deal with them in general. And also, the other thing that's really dumb with them is if they're like standing up and their arms like stretch, sometimes they'll actually break the glass for the other regenerator. I had that happen before, and I was like wondering how they even got out of glass container. I'm like saying to myself, oh, you broke out one of your brethrens. How nice of you to actually do that for me. Ain't you such a wonderful lad? And you could probably tell the sarcasm. Yeah, I'm a very sarcastic person, but yeah. That was really obnoxious that they can actually break one another out of their little tubes. Which, I'm like saying to myself, how dare y'all break each other out of your tubes? So yeah, that was not fun at all, having to deal with the fact that that can happen. And that's why I kill them all beforehand. And yes, it does take a while, but it's better to be safe than sorry with these jiggly masses of jello. And maybe some people might say just don't compare them to jello because it ruins jello. But ironically enough, I really never liked Jello in the first place. I do like their pudding, but I don't like their actual Jello. Their pudding is pretty good. I always like their chocolate pudding, or the chocolate and vanilla swirl one is really good, but I never liked actual Jello. Even though some people like Jello with whipped cream, I just never cared for it. But now we are about almost done, and we get Ashley for just one chapter, and then she disappears again. Because Sadler took her away from Mr. Kennedy. Oh no. Oh no, not Mr. Kennedy loses Ashley yet again. Yep. As always. And on top of that, the only other part of this video that I actually struggled with was Krauser's chapter. Because Krauser is basically the bane of my existence versus the Novistadors. If it's not the Novistadors ruining my my time with it, it's Krauser. It's either Krauser or the Novistadors or the Guardadors. Those are the three that make my runs of Remake 4 a pain to deal with. So yeah, those three are basically my Achilles heel with this game. They always make my runs more annoying and painful to deal with because they're always a roadblock for me. And of course I forget to put the key card in the key reader. I always forget to do at least something. But the enemies do filter in, and then I just hold the fort until I can get the key card, and then I just run. You're kind of intended to do that, but it's a lot harder when the regenerators are still in the case and they're throwing dynamite. And we get squirmy ones, we get the squirmers. Overwrite complete, yes. Now Mr. Kennedy, run! Got him, Mr. Kennedy, go! Yes. And I almost forgot the key card. Like a dumb goober. I always forget at least something. It's either this, the key for the church, or the marble in Mindy Tendy's house. I always forget at least something. I always forget because I'm rushing through the chapters, because I don't want to linger too long. So once I was like, I grabbed it and just forgot. And if you must know, the reason why there's a locker there is an enemy that's a regenerator that has a bunch of plagas in it, and then it turns into an Iron Maiden. They have a locker there if you want to hide Ashley, and you don't bring her into the room with you. So that's why the locker is there. In the beginning, I wondered why the locker was there, and then I'm saying to myself, when I killed the enemy for the trophy, because you have to do all of the merchant's quests, I had to do that quest, and I figured that's the reason why the locker is there. But after this chapter, we only have one last chapter, and then the challenge is finished. This challenge wasn't too bad. It was actually pretty easy and pretty simple for what it was worth. I really didn't find it hard at all compared to my other challenges I have attempted on this channel, and at some point I do plan on doing other challenges and other games, because I know you guys are probably getting tired of playing 4. I like 4, but I'm actually getting burnt out of 4. That's why I don't mind playing 6. 6 is actually pretty fun to play, but It's kind of unhinged for what it's worth, which I find to be funny. That's why I enjoy playing 6 at times, because the whole game is just really over the top and very corny, and that's what I like about 6, because it tries so hard to be overly serious and like dramatic, and it just makes it corny and like really unhinged and kind of funny and campy at times. So that's why I don't mind doing challenge runs for 6. So if you guys have any ideas, let me know. I'll be willing to try different challenge runs. I'll mostly either play Chris's campaign or Leon's. I never really did Ada's, so I really don't know what to expect with hers. But I would be willing to do hers as well, so we have like a different variety, because they deal with different enemies and different bosses. Some do share bosses because they do share certain sections, but for the most part I would be willing to do more challenges with 6 to take a break from 4, because I know you guys are kind of getting tired of 4. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to finish the knife only run for 4 remake. Keep Thursdays specifically as Resident Evil 4 remake, so I can do the weapon challenges, and then RE6 will be Saturday. Friday, on the other hand, I have to figure out a game to play for Friday when I beat knife only, so I can kind of break up the monotony of 4. Because 4 is kind of getting repetitive. So I'm trying to figure out what other Resident Evil game I would be willing to do challenge runs for, because 5 is off the table, because unless I have somebody that I can physically play with Resident Evil 4, not Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 5, I won't play 5 for that specific reason, because Sheva's horrible. But if I had someone to play online with, I would be definitely willing to do challenge runs with somebody. That would be really fun. With 6, the AI isn't as bad because they don't die and they don't have any health and they have infinite ammo. They never run out, so you really don't have to worry about them dying or them wasting your ammo or resources or anything like that, like Sheva does. So you don't have to worry about all of those, you don't have to worry about that. Which is nice, because Sheva, I like her as a character as well, but her AI for 5 just basically makes 5 unplayable. Which is unfortunate, because I only beaten Resident Evil 5 once on my Switch, believe it or not, and I've never picked it up really ever since. I picked it up shortly on YouTube to play it, but I've really never bothered to beat it again because her AI just makes the game basically unplayable. And you know, that game will never be remade. Ever. It's basically going to be stuck the way it is, which is unfortunate, because I think if they fixed it and fixed her bad AI, or just made it a single player experience with 2 separate stories, like kind of like Resident Evil 1 or Resident Evil 2, I think the game wouldn't be as bad, and add a little bit more horror to Resident Evil 5, because Resident Evil 5 for me always felt like one of those games that you would play at an arcade, kind of the run and gun shooters. That's what Resident Evil 5 reminds me of. It doesn't even like give a Resident Evil feel to 5. It just feels like an overly action-packed game and not really that much horror. Like Resident Evil 4 has very minimal horror, but Resident Evil 5 barely has any horror at all. Like, it has nothing in it that's scary. Which is unfortunate, because I think if they added horror to 5 and made it more like balance with the action and the horror, 5 would actually be a really good game, but 5 is just a flawed experience because of bad AI and really outdated gameplay. And of course, the Iron Maiden's a pain. Why would it not be? I call them pincushions, by the way. That's the nickname I gave them. I call them pincushions. And that's what they basically are. They're just jello covered in little spiky barbs. So they're basically pincushions.
Stick close.
Come on, Ashley. I still find it funny that he whistles for her.
Get that lever.
Got it.
And this door is slightly harder on the remake, not the remake, the higher difficulties than lower difficulties, because the lower difficulties, they have more space for you to like hit for the arrows to
Give me some space.
go on the red part.
Okay.
But on pro and on hardcore they made it very small, but on lower difficulties it's a lot bigger, so you have more room to open the door. And you know, I'm not really good at timing, so I kind of suck at that. And now this part is a pain because there's a jello in that pile of garbage right there. And once you turn on the lights, the jello gets active. So, and also you have a bunch of enemies that filter through. So you're basically trying to kill the enemies plus trying to kill the big jello bean. And I was looking for the enemies. I was like, where are they? And they're like, supplies. And I never understood how you can shoot through the bars and it actually works. It's 9 out of 10 times I just wind up hitting the metal bars and not even hitting the enemies. Which I kind of find to be funny. It's because it's like, oh, I'm shooting the enemies. No, I'm shooting the bars. It just boggles my mind how I'm basically shooting through metal bars trying to protect Ashley. Is the reason why I kill the enemies first is because when I try to kill the regenerator, I was hoping that Ashley, there was no more enemies, but of course there was, because once I get over to where Ashley is, she gets picked up. And then I have the stupid regenerator chasing me. So, let's just say Leon got tossed around like a ragdoll for a few seconds before I even got a chance to get to the bridge. Because Ashley does kill the regenerator for you, which is nice. I was like, yay, I don't have to deal with the regenerator. And this puzzle sucks, so I skipped. I cut out most of it so you guys just see the puzzle being completed and not me fooling around with the buttons, trying to figure the puzzle out to save on time. And now we are going to be reaching the section with the wrecking ball. They basically merged the section with the bulldozer and the wrecking ball together, which I'm not really bothered by it. It's not that bad, but you can skip this part by using the boomstick or 2 grenades. After the cutscene where she goes into the wrecking thing, you can actually go and shoot the wall, and it would weaken the wall to where when she hits it with the wrecking ball, it automatically breaks, because it takes a while for the wall to break with the wrecking ball. I think it like takes like 3 to 4 hits but when you weaken it with the rocket launcher or the grenades, it breaks immediately. So it saves time and it makes this section a lot easier. That's why I allow skips in my challenges, because it saves time and it also speeds up the challenges to where I'm not taking a year and a day to do one part. So, and of course Ashley takes a year and a day to get where Leon is. And now we get to hear very cringy dialogue from Ashley. Like, I know she has a crush on Leon, but this whole part just made me inwardly cringe on how, like, she's talking to him. Because Leon starts to care somewhat, but at the same time she's blatantly flirting with him and he just doesn't want to really hear it necessarily.
Right? Maybe someday I'll become an agent like you.
I just found this to be hella cringe.
Protect the US from any and all threats.
Is that right? Well, either way, first we have
Yeah, like, I felt bad that Leon had to basically deal with her constantly hitting on him, because he probably got uncomfortable after a while and she just kept doing it. Because, like, he's there to, like, get you home safely. He's not there to, like, basically flirt with you, even though he flirts with quite a few people. Like, he flirts with Ada, he's flirted with Claire, and a few other characters in, like, the movies or whatever. But I just feel like these two are just basically just platonic, even though it's, like, one-sided. Because Ashley clearly likes Leon, but Leon just is not interested at all by any means. And this part was also kind of cringy too. But I always skip the cutscenes because I don't play the challenges for the story. I just basically play for the gameplay now because I've seen the cutscenes so many damn times to where it's like I don't even want to see them anymore. And now we're nearing my other Achilles heel, which is our darling friend Krauser. And how I do not like fighting Krauser at all. His AI is incredibly aggressive, which makes sense, but his boss fight is basically a gauntlet. At least you don't have to wait for doors to open, like in the original, where you have to, like, wait out doors for them to open and then run after Krauser. Because most of his boss fight is in the original a wild goose chase for the most part of it, but in this game it's like you run, turn a switch, run some more, go through a gauntlet of bear traps, Gatling guns attached to the ceiling, and then a whole entire gauntlet with the stupid bow, and then more running around, and then finally fighting Krauser. I really wish that you got his bow and not his stupid knife. I think it would have been more interesting to have that. I know there's a mod, if you guys ever want to play it on PC, there is a mod where someone actually modded in Krauser's bow into Resident Evil 4 Remake. I think that would have been a fun weapon to use. I think that would have been really fun to actually play and use as an actual gun. But they didn't put it in there. They just copped out and gave him the knife, which is the same knife that Leon had in RE4 OG. So I just felt that they should have just made a different weapon. You could have either got his TMP or his bow. I think that would have been better and more iconic than just a knife. And every time this part, I try to cheese it by throwing a grenade or a flashbang, and it never works. But at least it gets rid of the laser there. I was hoping I would be able to hit him, but I didn't.
Just turn this place
He
into
still
one big trap.
bamboozled me anyway. And tried to stab me in my neck. You're mean, Krauser. You're one mean bean. Yes, you is, Mr. Krauser Bean.
Ready to die, rookie.
No. And his, like, voice is, like, really nasally. It kind of reminds me of Virgil, but we're not dissing Virgie Poo. We're not doing that. And also, if I ever did want to play Devil May Cry, I suck terribly at DMC. I used to be really good many years ago. Like, when I mean many years ago, I mean like 10 years ago. I used to be really good at Devil May Cry. Not anymore. I tried playing it a while back. I tried playing 5, and I just suck at it now. Because I really liked playing it in high school. When I was in like my sophomore year of high school, I really loved playing it, but now it's like I just remotely suck at it to the point where it's not even worth playing anymore. My favorite one in the series was 3. I really liked 3, even though 3 was pretty difficult. My least favorite was I liked 1 as well. 1 was originally supposed to be not Devil May Cry, Resident Evil 4. It was supposed to be Resident Evil 4, but they made it a whole different IP. And I did like the light horror elements of the original Devil May Cry, the first one. I do like that. It makes that game very different from the rest in a good way. But this part is always a pain because Krauser just is a troll. Like, Krauser, why? Why are you so mean to me? What did I do to you? Are you going to give my present now? The grenades, Mr. Krauser man? Yep. And of course, his grenades don't destroy the stupid, mine at all. I was shooting the wrong side like a dum-dum. But I was able to duck underneath it for some odd reason. I don't even know. It just magic, I guess. Leon just be dodging the lasers as be like Neo. Instead of dodging bullets, he'd be dodging lasers. And Leon's like, Krauser, it's not too late. Turn back to the side, please. And Krauser's like, no, Leon, I refuse. We're just going to have a knife fight and fight to the death on the ruins on an island. Because why not? Why not, Mr. Krauser man? But I don't want to settle it the old-fashioned way, Krauser. I don't want to do anything. I just want to deck you in the face. Redfield style, but no. He just, like, kept kicking my butt. And, I just suck at his fights. So if the gameplay is terrible, I know it is. The thing is, I'm always transparent with my viewers. If I suck at a game, I don't pretend to be good at it. Like, I don't pretend to be, like, good at games that I genuinely suck at. I don't. I'm actually, honest in that regard when it comes to my inability to be halfway decent at certain games or certain sections. I don't pretend to be some kind of, like, pro at this game. So I don't try to act a certain way or anything like that. I try to remain humble on this YouTube channel. I like to grow and I like to develop my skills in games over time. But the only games that I'm actually really good at are RPGs, because I've played them for so many years. I've been playing RPGs for about 15 to 16 years of my life, so I've been playing them for a very long time. So those types of games I'm really good at, but don't ever ask me any help for action RPGs. Those I suck at. The ones that I'm really good at are strategy RPGs, tactical ones, and turn-based ones. Those are the ones that I excel at, but I'm not good at all at by any means when it comes to action RPGs. The reason why I'm suck so bad at them is due to the fact that I'm not good at timing. Timing is not my strong suit when it comes to games. So when it comes to the whole thing with the dodging and the parrying and the blocking and stuff are not things that I'm remotely good at when it comes to action RPGs. If they're like open world with real time, like battles, like kind of like open world RPGs, those don't bother me, but like ones that are like kind of like the Soulsborne games when it comes to actual real like combat, that type of stuff, those games I genuinely suck at. Like those I really suck at. Like the only one that I was able to get pretty far in was Code Vein, but it's because the game is intended to be played with a partner that the game gives you. But like ones like kind of like the Souls games, I enjoy like the aesthetic. I love the Middle Ages aesthetic. I love that a lot. But I just suck at them. I've tried playing them in the past and I just gave up on them and I have not picked them up since. So it's not easy for me to pick up a game like that and just try to hope for the best. I tried doing the whole thing. I saw somebody try to use like the boomstick and shoot from far off and kill the enemies. I tried doing that. That's why there was a jump cut there. I removed that because I highly doubt you guys want to see me fooling around with the rocket launcher. And now here's the final stretch of this challenge, which is chapter 15, the last real chapter of this game before we get to one-shot Sadler, because I don't even bother killing him normally. I just one-shot him or two-shot him with the rocket launcher and call it a day. Because at that point, the challenge is over with once you get to Sadler, so there's no point. I know most people like, oh, then it defeats the purpose of having a weapons only challenge for one particular weapon or a group of weapons. Not really, because once you get to Sadler, the challenge is pretty much over and there's like no reason not just to skip his fight, because his fight is long, tedious, and he does so much damage and it's just a waste of resources and a waste of time. Like the fight with him on the island in this game, he spawns Novistadors, and the Novistadors, there's so many of them, and then there's Sadler, so it's just so much annoying garbage you have to deal with in a very, it's not enclosed, but it's not really open either, because you have like the narrow pathways and then the slightly big areas. So it's just not worth dealing with half the time. That's why I didn't even bother. And this is why I mean, like, Mike isn't that bad. He actually destroys a section for you so you can get past. You don't have to deal with this. You just hide behind the rock and hope for the best. And then after that, it's smooth sailing for a short period of time, and then you actually have to do the part the gate by yourself, and then after that the helicopter section's over with. And the original, it's much longer and more tedious, so I was happy that they shortened this section. But the section after that has our buddies or Novistadors again. I will show an easier way to deal with them when I actually get to that part, because we still have to get through this section first. What I mean, there's an easier way to do it. Basically, if you have a flash grenade, what you can do is you can throw the flash grenade down to the ground after the cutscene plays and just make a break for the door, because they'll be stunned enough to where you can get farther away from them to actually get away, so you don't have to actually fight them anymore. And also, there's a skip with the you need 2 heavy grenades. I don't know if regular grenades will work, but heavy grenades, all you need is 2 to destroy the turret. And then after this, we're about halfway out of chapter 15, because after this part, there is the part with the Novistadors, and then there's the room with the regenerators, and then after that, you just have that last hurrah, and then we're done with the challenge after that. This part was a nightmare for certain challenges because the enemies are ruthless in this part, and there's so many of them. But flash grenades are your best friend when it comes to certain challenges, especially on higher difficulties. But I don't even know how I was able to get through dealing with getting shot at, burned, and hit at the same time. That was just a mess right there. I have no idea how or why the enemies just decided to just go guns blazing at Leon all at once. It's just safer to get rid of them in intervals, because if you try getting rid of them all at once while the turrets are firing, you're just gonna wind up dying. So it's just best to kill them in groups slowly, and then start going up the area to get to the 2 switches. Because if you try to, like I say, do it all at once, you're gonna get overwhelmed and die. Because the turrets do damage you, but if you do have the body armor, you won't be damaged until it breaks. So just keep that in mind. So at least they got rid of the turrets on the bottom, because there was turrets also on the bottom in the original, because there was 2 turrets, 1 on either side, and then there was a turrets on the bottom section. At least they removed the ones on the bottom, because the ones on the bottom were a pain, especially when you got to either one of the switches for the door to open it. So yeah, that was not fun to deal with in the OG. The ones on the bottom floor were not fun to deal with by any means. And I should have just got the flash grenade instead of trying to kill them with the Matilda. Because all the enemies just decided to go and attack me all at once, as always. So that's why I just decided to throw a flash grenade and call it a day, and run away from the enemies as fast as possible, because it's just better to run, especially in this part, because like I said a few times, you'll easily get overwhelmed by the enemies and the turrets. And poor bro's not having a good time being burned and dying slowly as well. Poor broski didn't know what hit him. And now here's Piggy McGee. I'm so mad that they got rid of Bro for those, the brutes. I would have preferred JJ over them, but They kind of removed all the iconic enemies that everybody loved, like JJ. I don't know why they did that. I would have preferred it, and besides, it makes more sense. I highly doubt there's gonna be a random enemy that's just gonna, like, have a boar's head in an island military base. Like, why? It would make more sense for a big roided man with a giant Gatling gun shooting at you versus a dude with a boar's head. Like, I really highly doubt a random person's gonna stick a boar's head on their head and be in a military base trying to kill an agent and steal a random 20-year-old. So yeah, I highly doubt that would make sense. But that's Capcom for you. And now we are almost there. Almost. We just have to get past the Novistadors and get past the Jellos, and then we're good to go. And now, when it comes to the part with them, is that you just throw the flash grenade towards the floor. You don't throw it up, you throw it down. As it gives the grenade less time to hit the ground, so it actually hits faster and you can actually run away a lot quicker. So I just throw it on the ground and run towards the door. And the reason why I do that is because there's so many Novistadors that spawn in, and it buys you some time to get away from them, because when I tell you those bugs are a pain and I hate dealing with them, so skipping that was actually a good idea. In the OG, they don't spawn there. They only spawn in the remake. Now after this is where I start to not like the regenerators, because this part you can avoid them if you don't hit the bags. But on higher difficulties, this section with the door closes so fast to where you have to kill them. Because if you as much as touch the bag that they're in, they will run at you and do so much damage to you that you will die regardless. So it's best to kill one at a time. There's only 2 in this room, so you don't have to worry. The third one was by the door that you entered from. So as long as you kill both of them, you'll be able to get to the door without worrying about knocking into one of the bags that's in there. I'm glad that there's only 2 of them, because if they had any more than 2, this would have been a dumpster fire. This would have been a mess if there was more than 2 regenerators. Now we get to deal with it being an Iron Maiden. The only good thing with Iron Maidens is they don't have as much health as regenerators do, but they're more aggressive, they're faster, and they do more damage. And I think they can insta-kill you. So yeah, they're not fun at all to deal with, and they only have one weak point, which is their head. In the original, they were like regular regenerators where they had multiple plagas throughout the body, but they changed it to where it only has one, and it's in their head. So that's basically the only part that genuinely sucks about the changed Iron Maidens, is the fact that they removed the multiple plagas from their bodies and just stuck it in their head and called it a day. The other regenerator is by the wheel, so I think it's that one right there. And then after that, we'll be able to turn the wheel and leave this room. And then after this room is just one last gauntlet of enemies. And then that's it. And then the challenge basically is over, and then we actually get to finish this challenge. and then move on to something else. After this video, I'll most likely work on either pacifist or no healing. I'll probably work on pacifist because pacifist was actually really fun to actually do. Even though it was challenging, I had to think outside the box to figure out how to beat certain areas that were intended for you to kill the enemies. So I actually had to figure out ways to get past enemies or get past certain sections. So it actually had to be more than just point and shoot, and you actually had to figure out interesting ways, which I did enjoy to an extent. But I really didn't enjoy having to run from a lot of enemies, because a lot of the enemies I had to run from, especially the dogs, were not fun to deal with, especially when it came to the maze. That wasn't entirely fun. I thought yeah, it's dead now. Just have to turn the wheel and get to the door, and then we are about done. Which is good because this video was very long and it took forever. I'm just very thankful for your guys' patience. I appreciate it very muchly so. And I don't know how Leon actually got underneath the door, but you do you, boo-boo child. You do you, Mr. Kennedy. And sorry for the multiple jump cuts. I had to cut both me saving and also me talking to the merchant, so that's why there's a few jump cuts there. But this part is kind of rough because you have both the Novistadors and regular enemies on the same area, but this area is pretty short if you know what you're doing. So, as long as you get from point A to point B and you keep running, you'll be fine. And then after that, we get Ashley, and then two-shot Sadler and call it a day. Yay! And what I'm mostly looking for is where the Novistadors are, because there's quite a few of them that are camouflaged, so I'm trying to figure out where they are. I know there's one in the corner. So, I know that was there, and there's one over off to the side too. And then we have our not JJ friend over there with his stupid little pea shooter looking thing. And I always found it funny that there's a random dude with a rocket launcher trying to shoot at you. I don't even know if it's like an infinite one where they're just gonna keep reloading it, or it's a one and done deal. But the archers are always obnoxious when it comes to just minding your own business. You're just trying to get from point A to point B, and they just decide to load you with some arrows. And also, I didn't even realize the Novistador was right there until I moved, and then boom, there he is. I think there's another one, I think. And after this part here, the goal is to get, there's a switch that you have to turn that moves the gun away from the door so you can leave. Well, it's not really directly on the door, it's the pathway to the door, which isn't hard to get to. It's just there's so many enemies to where you have to constantly keep stopping. Because if you try to run away from them, they'll just like flank you, or they'll basically follow you throughout. So there's really no point in not killing them. And yes, I do suck at parrying, I know this. Parrying for me is not easy to do in this game. Sometimes I get lucky by chance. And I always found this part to be funny because I kick them out and the door closes when he tries to open it. I just found that to be funny when I was streaming. And now I think I can actually go up the stairs now, finally, after being bamboozled multiple times by a bunch of jabronis. So now I can finally go up the stairs now. And more Novistadors, the drama queens. And the reason why I call them that is because how they die, they're like overly dramatic. Especially in the OG when they like make their little noise and they put their little arm up and they just like explode. Like a little pimple. Like that was like overly cringe. And here's not JJ again. And then after that, we just have to push the button and run. And of course I get the plug that I don't want to see. The noodle worm. And then after the button is pushed, I have to get back to the stairwell. And there's just a bunch of enemies, as always, that you have to get rid of. A bunch of them, actually. Which sucks. And, that's about it. We're at the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I did. Even though it took me a while to record all the audio, and I'm sorry if I ramble too much, but I really don't know how to make long form videos with talking. It's very difficult for me to constantly come up with forms of like different talking points while I'm making this commentary. I don't really do scripts, I just talk and try to come up with things that are interesting or fun to speak about. And now we're at chapter 16, which, like I said, is basically a non-tent chapter. It's really short and really not a chapter at all. All I'm basically going to show in this chapter is getting to Sadler and then two-shotting Sadler, and that's it, and then the results screen shows up. So I do like the fact how short this chapter is, because it kind of makes sense. I don't know why they would add more to it, because there's like really nothing going on in this chapter besides fighting the final boss. It's not like there's any rhyme or reason to make it any longer than it needs to be. So now we get to go to find our little buggy friends for the last time, because if you kill Sadler with the infinite rocket launcher or rocket launcher, he won't summon the Novistadors. So this is technically the last time we'll be seeing our little buggy friends until we get to see them again, when we have to fight them again in the other chapters, when I do other challenges. I always wonder where the third one appears from, because it just does. But now we get to find and fight Mr. Sadler. Yeah, now I just two-shot Sadler and that's it. The video's over with. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you guys next time with more Resident Evil 4 Remake or any other videos that I'm able to finish. Adios and have a good rest of your day or night.